Madame le député Lehegara. Monsieur le député Ayer. Monsieur le député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le député Alves.
Présente.
Madame le député Gardner. Monsieur le député Gorse.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Farnham.
Présent.
Madame le député Moore.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Ozef. Monsieur le député Balash. Monsieur le député Cole.
Présent.
Madame le député Poré. Monsieur le député Wall.
Présent.
Madame le député Miles.
Présente.
Madame le député Scott.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Renouf. Madame le député Curtis.
Présente.
Madame le député Feltham. Madame le député Pinney. Madame le député Jean.
Présente.
Madame le député Miller.
Présente.
Madame le député Howell. Monsieur le député Binet. Monsieur le député Ferry.
Présent.
Madame le député Kovac.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Curtis. Madame le député Ward.
Présente.
Madame le député Wilson.
Présente.
Madame le député Stevenson.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Andrews.
Madame McGregor.
Prions Dieu. Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait le ciel et la terre. Amen.
Amen.
Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et la puissance de la terre, pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de son Saint-Nom. Nous te prions qu'il te presse de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir le cœur et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, et de les conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit, toute leur délibération étant accompagnée de ta bénédiction, réussisse au bien au soulagement du peuple qui t'a plu de commettre le soin, quand nous t'en prions au nom et par le mérite de ton Fils bien-aimé, Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui est aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié,
Ton règne vienne.
ta volonté soit faite dans la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien,
Et nous pardonne nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés.
et ne nous induis pas en tentation, mais
Et
délivre-nous
délivre-nous
du
du
mal.
mal.
Car
Car
toi,
toi, le
règne,
règne,
la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Clément,
Malade.
vous jurez que Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Clément est tellement indisposé qu'il ne peut pas assister aux états sans exposer sa santé. Monsieur le député Southern,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Morale,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Ozef,
Sir, Deputy Ozef was travelling back from the UK after a medical appointment and has had some issues with the travel. Is stuck in the UK and cannot therefore join us for the remote sitting
But he's intending to join remotely when he can.
when he returns to the island, sir.
It's a matter for members whether he's marked therefore excusé. Excusé.
Monsieur le député Balash. Vous jurez que Monsieur le député Balash est tellement indisposé qu'il ne peut pas assister aux états sans exposer sa santé. Madame le député Feltham,
Présente.
Les États sont constitués.
Sir, at this point, please could I advise the Assembly that I have a medical appointment mid-morning. I will be absent for a short time and I will return immediately after.
Thank you very much, Deputy.
So if I could also advise the Assembly that I have a parish assembly funeral to attend later this morning. I'll be absent for a while.
And so, yes, I'll be attending the same funeral.
Same funeral.
I'd like to attend the same funeral as well, sir.
And I'm hoping to attend the same funeral.
Right. Yes,
So I'll also be attending the same funeral. And with that in mind, I wonder if members would permit me to take the urgent question as the first question rather than the last, because there's a good chance that I wouldn't be present, sir.
It's a matter for members. Yes, we'll put that as first on the questions before questions with notice. Very well. There are a number of subordinate enactments lodged under B. Matters have been presented or lay as described on the consolidated order paper under Section C. Under Section D, the following have been lodged. The Strategic Reserve Fund Long-Term Funding Plan P22 Amendment, lodged by Deputy Andrews, P22, as I say. Draft Statistics and Census Jersey Amendment Law, P29 Amendment, lodged by the Chief Minister. Cannabis Decriminalisation of Personal Possession and Recreational Use Amendment, lodged by Deputy Gardner, P31. Cannabis Decriminalisation of Personal Possession and Recreational Use Amendment to the Amendment, lodged by the Minister for Health and Social Services. Cannabis Decriminalisation of Personal Possession and Recreational Use, Second Amendment, lodged by the Council of Ministers. The same proposition, Third Amendment, lodged by Deputy Coles. The same proposition, Fourth Amendment, lodged by Deputy Curtis. The Affordable and Right-Size Housing Provision on the Waterfront, P37 Amendment, lodged by the Council of Ministers. Draft Mental Health Young Offenders Law Amendment Regulations, lodged by the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, P40. Draft Agricultural Loans Jersey Amendment Regulations, Minister for Sustainable Economic Development, P41. A draft Public Holidays and Bank Holidays Royal Visit Jersey Amendment Act, lodged by the Chief Minister, P42. There is nothing under E, excuse me, E, F, G, H, and I. A number of answers have been tabled to the written questions, and we now come to the oral questions. The first oral question is, I beg your pardon, it's the urgent oral question. I apologise. The following urgent oral question has been approved by me, and that Deputy Stevenson will ask of the Minister for Health and Social Services. I will allow the nominal time available for each other question, which is 9 minutes. Yes, Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what actions, if any, his department is taking to rectify issues identified by the Royal College of Radiologists in their report on Jersey's breast cancer screening service and the timescales for any such actions to ensure that islanders are receiving appropriate and effective care?
Minister.
Sir, in April of this year, I met with the Deputy Medical Director, who gave me a full update on this situation and provided me with a thorough explanation of the Breast Radiology Action Plan. The plan included a well-considered range of recommendations, many of which have since been implemented or are in the process of being implemented. Some actions were easily addressed, but some will require further investment and support over a period of time. All the actions have been RAG-rated to ensure that those with the highest priority in relation to patient safety have been and continue to be addressed first. A sustained programme of support has been put in place and will be monitored on an ongoing basis. Full details of the recommendations will be made available at the next public board meeting in July, sir. So members will be aware that there are numerous problems to be overcome at the Health Department, and there is no doubt that other issues will emerge before things settle down. But at this point in time, I can at least assure members, what I can assure members is that I've been extremely impressed with the speed and efficiency of the work that's been undertaken since the report was received. Thank you.
Supplemental question.
Thank you, sir. I understand, again from media coverage yesterday, that the radiologist referred to in the JUP's coverage of the contents of that report and subsequent fallout from it is still employed by his department. Can the Minister confirm on what terms that individual is working, in what role, and what steps have been taken to ensure they're up to the job and not putting further patients at risk?
I can't provide a precise detail of what that radiologist is doing at the moment, sir, but I can assure the Assembly that nobody else is being at risk. If we look at the actual facts behind this, the level of false negatives that were detected is actually in line with sort of within the tolerances that are generally accepted in most Western countries, sir.
Deputy Chairman.
Thank you, sir. I asked the Minister 2 weeks ago in the last state sitting, in fact, what are the clinical areas in the HCS that the Minister is most concerned about at the moment? And his response was, I have to say there's nothing of massive concern at this point in time. Is the Minister still content with his answer?
Yes, I am, sir. This latest affair is historical. It happened a good while ago. It was first initially dealt with a year ago. I think there are members present who were aware of the situation. And it's my job to ensure that patients aren't put in a state of panic, sir. So I think this has been handled sensitively, and we will carry on handling further issues of this sort in the same manner, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Chairman.
Yes, thank you. Could the Minister advise when he knew about the concerns outlined in the Royal Court of Radiologists report, and if he did so, when he did so, did he prioritise them as something that was an important part of his oversight?
So the Deputy referred to the radiology report. Sorry, could the Deputy repeat the question, sir? Sorry.
Yes,
sorry,
please.
maybe I've got the name of the report wrong, but could the Minister advise when he knew of the concerns outlined in the report that I think in the JP was published in January, but when did the Minister know of these concerns, and did he prioritise any of them when he came from January, and if not, why not?
Yes, I was informed of the situation shortly after taking office, which is end of January, early February, I believe. I've been updated ever since. And as I said earlier, I've been extremely impressed by the way this has been handled. It's been under the control of the Deputy Medical Director. And I have to say I've had full confidence in the actions that he'd taken. It was very, very clear that he'd prioritised everything and made very good arrangements to deal with things in a timely and sensitive manner, sir. So I didn't have to prioritise anything. I could see that matters were being well prioritised by the team. Thank you, sir.
I have Deputy Renouf, then the Connétable St Lawrence, Deputy Tallier, Gardner and Dublé. No further questions. Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. The Minister says he knew in January. He says he met with the Medical Director in April. The Ministerial Code, point 28, says that executive members shall adopt a no-surprises approach regarding announcements, ensuring that ministerial colleagues and then the state's members are notified in advance of the media. Why did the Minister not follow this?
Simply, sir, because I deemed it in the best interests of patients not to do so. I think in all of these matters, I know that we all feel that we're entitled to information here, sir, and that's absolutely as it should be. But in health, I'm afraid the patients come first, and I took the view that it was in the best interest of the patients that every one of those patients that was concerned should have been contacted in the first instance, and that's the way that we chose to deal with it, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Renouf.
Yes, so we're dealing with this issue now because of a report in the newspaper. Can the Minister say when all those people had been contacted, given that this was first brought to his attention in January, and why it has taken so long to make those contacts?
So I don't know if I heard the question correctly, but did I hear correctly that we've dealt with this because of a report in the newspaper?
Well, the specific question is when did the people affected by this receive notification? That's the
as soon as we had sufficient information to know what we were contacting them about. So there's been a complex process. I'm happy to reveal what that process is. It's not something that I could stand here and repeat in full detail, but there's been a very complicated, well-organised process that's been implemented, and I'm very happy to share that with the Deputy, should he so wish.
Connétable St Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. In the best interests of patients, how is the accountability for this being managed?
Once again, I can't lay that out in precise detail, but I can assure the Constable that they're being managed appropriately. So I have no reason to suspect why they wouldn't be handled in accordance with all of the protocols that are in place.
Supplemental question.
Thank you, sir. Has the Minister not asked that question of his officers Because he should be able to answer it.
No, I should be honest with you, sir. I can't recall having had that discussion. I may well have done. I have dozens and dozens of conversations with a lot of people on a lot of issues, sir. But I'm very comfortable with the people that are dealing with this, and I'm absolutely certain that it's been dealt with properly. I can certainly report back to the Constable at some point after the Assembly, sir.
Deputy Tadier.
In one of his supplementary answers, the Minister talked about not wanting to, I think, induce panic or something to that effect. Could he clarify what he meant by that?
Well, it would have been easy enough for the former Health Minister, the former Chief Minister, to report of this last year, because this was all known about at an early stage. Why would anybody, sir, want to put something out in public where people are going to be uncertain as to what their status is? And we wanted to make sure that all of those things had been dealt with in an orderly manner before the public knew. I think it's the patient's right to be dealt with before the public get notice.
Supplemental question, Deputy Tadier.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if this is an example of opinion management from a ministerial department. Surely the correct way to proceed is just to present the facts at the correct time and then let people decide whether they want to panic or whether they want to be quite relaxed about the news that's going on. Would the Minister agree that's the usual way forward?
No, I wouldn't, sir. I think it's quite preposterous, to be honest with you.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Minister has mentioned that there are outstanding actions required to be implemented. Would he inform the Assembly what are the outstanding actions from that report?
So there's a whole series of ongoing actions that relate to this, too many and varied for me to actually commit to memory. So as I say, those parties that are interested in the further details, I'm quite happy to share them with members at a later stage, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Gardner.
I understand there are too many actions. Would the Minister be able to provide at least 3 actions that he considers are important and urgent to implement?
No, so off the top of my head, under this sort of pressure, no. But I'm very happy there's a comprehensive programme of works that's being undertaken.
Deputy Dublé.
Sir, has the Minister reflected that the patient groups mostly impacted by the 2 major issues identified recently are groups that may be particularly vulnerable in medical settings, namely older people and women? In making these reflections, what actions can the Minister take to make sure that these groups are receiving appropriate medical care?
So given that I take these 2 groups particularly seriously, I think it's safe to say that I've done all that I can up to this point in time, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Dublé.
Thank you, sir. I have reflected on the Minister's answers to the previous question where he declines to give any action points off the top of his head. Did the Minister not prepare for this question time with his officers, and does he not have that action plan in front of him today?
Yes, sir, I did spend a considerable amount of time preparing for this, but I've also got a considerable amount of other work. We have a health service that is not in disarray, but requires a great deal of attention. I also spend some of my time looking at redesigning the entire health service, a major body of work where I'm going to come back to the Assembly for a large sum of money to do ill health prevention. So these are major things that are going to give rise, if with the Assembly's approval, they're going to give rise to a lot of these things not happening anymore. So I spend a little bit of time dealing with the symptoms of what's going wrong, and I spend an awful lot of time dealing with the causes, sir, and I'm very comfortable about that.
Sir, if I may, I think the second part of my question wasn't heard because of the foot stamping. I asked the Minister if he had the action plan in front of him today.
No, I don't have the action plan in front of me today here, sir. Because I don't see what purpose that would serve. There's a team of very competent people dealing with this issue, and I'm very comfortable about that, and I don't think having that report here would serve any purpose particularly.
Final supplementary, Deputy Stevens.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister confirm if the RCR report, which I believe there's 2 reports, and this is the initial one which focused on radiology, does it raise any further questions about any other aspects of radiology care which warrant further investigation or action beyond those which relate to the breast cancer screening service? Or is he satisfied that all other aspects of radiology are working appropriately and effectively and delivering the best possible care for islanders?
There are other issues of radiology under scrutiny at the moment, sir, and we'll be making those findings clear probably towards the end of next month.
Very well.
Sir? Sorry.
Yes.
There wasn't an opportunity to ask a further question to put the record straight, but I do think that the Health Minister inaccurately suggested that the former Chief Minister was aware of this report. She was not.
Very well. Well,
Sir, I have to say, if I may, that I checked that yesterday and I was informed that that was the case.
well, I think this is a matter that certainly can't be resolved. There is no mechanism for resolving any kind of dispute on this before the Assembly. I certainly cannot resolve it. And so I think we have to leave it as it's there. Very well. We come now to questions without notice in the ordinary course of events. And the first question is indeed to be asked by Deputy Wilson of the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister provide an update on the work of the PFAS Scientific Advisory Panel with specific regard to the presence of PFAS concerns raised by islanders and any findings or recommendations that have been made by the panels to date?
Minister.
Sir, this is quite a comprehensive question, so could I ask whether you'd be prepared to grant me a small extension to the usual response time?
Well, the usual response time is 1 minute and 30 seconds. It's often honoured in the breach rather than the observance, but provided we don't go on to 3 minutes or 2 minutes, then let's try and get through it.
Thank you, sir. The PFAS Scientific Advisory Panel has been in place for about a year, and they're currently preparing a series of reports in order to make recommendations for the government. The first report has been finalised, and that recommends the implementation of a therapeutic phlebotomy service. That service is now in development. Report 2 focuses on the health effects of PFAS, and that's currently in preparation, with recommendations due to be discussed by the panel in public towards the end of June. Islanders will be consulted on the report's findings in September, with publication planned for the fourth quarter of this year, following the incorporation of the consultation feedback. The report takes into consideration islanders' concerns regarding health conditions they believe to be related to PFAS exposure and seeks to provide evidence for each disease area. Report 3 will review potential interventions to reduce PFAS levels and advise on the testing and retesting of islanders. Work on this report started in June with a launch event and a call for islanders to provide evidence. The finished report is due to be shared with islanders towards the end of the year and published early in 2025. The panel hasn't started work on Report 4 yet, sir, but when it does, it'll look into the impacts of PFAS on the environment. At recent consultation meetings, concerns have been raised in relation to the presence of PFAS in substances such as soil and mains water, and it's intended that these matters will be investigated during the preparation of Report 4 in order to address these concerns. Sir, no environmental recommendations have been made by the panel at this stage, and that's because a series of robust evaluation methods will need to be determined and followed in order to establish the facts that will give rise to them. Thank you, sir.
That was well within the time. Sorry. Very well. Supplemental question, Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister outline what he believes the impacts are on the individuals who are affected by this contamination, with particular regard to their health need?
Sir, I'm not aware that anybody has been particularly badly affected, and I say I'm not a clinician. I'm not qualified to answer that question, but that's why we've got this report, these series of reports being compiled, sir.
Well, Deputy Tadier.
So this has been an issue which has been raised over many years, not least by constituents in the west of the island, St. Peter, St. Bullards, being two significant parishes where there has been concern raised by members of the public. I had contact from somebody who was very concerned that her breast cancer may be linked to PFAS. She doesn't know that for sure, but she's looking for answers, as are many members of the public, and the lack of answers may well give rise to what the Minister spoke about earlier is panic amongst the public when this matter doesn't seem to have been resolved. So can he give an assurance that at some point very soon that there will be answers to those many people in the island for whom this is a current issue?
So I must admit to being at a bit of a loss in this regard. And there seem to be a number of people that think that when things come to the public's attention or come to the attention of people that have to deal with it, that things can be resolved overnight. Unless I'm wrong, I've just given a fairly comprehensive outline of 4 reports that are currently being undertaken. I certainly can't prejudge what they're going to say. I think the team are working on this as quickly as they can, and the outcomes of those reports will be made available as soon as possible, sir.
A supplemental question, Deputy Shadi? Deputy Jeune?
Could the Minister advise if he will be putting forward funding in the government plan for 2025 in relation to supporting any recommendations that come out of this scientific advisory panel, both for environmental but also for health issues?
Another opportunity for me to say that I don't know what's in the government plan for this at this point in time. I don't know what's in the government plan for PFAS, but I shall certainly find out and let the Deputy know. So I have to say I'm not a walking encyclopedia.
A supplemental question?
Yes, so will the Minister confirm if he will be prioritising putting funding into the government plan 2025?
So I'll be taking a balanced approach to how we deal with all of the funding in these areas.
Final supplementary question, Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Given the Minister's comments about he doesn't know what impact this has had on individuals' health, would he undertake to meet with those affected and to gain a better understanding of their concerns?
So amongst the many other things that I do, I seek to meet just about everybody that asks for a meeting with me. Nobody has been in touch with me about this to date, but like I did with virtually every other request, I'm very happy to meet people who have got concerns. As I say, unless I've missed something, it's the intention of these 4 reports to actually ascertain what the problems are. So.
Very well, we come to question 2. The Deputy Southern will ask of the Minister for International Development. Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. Further to publication of The Best Things First, a book by Professor Bjorn Lomborg, and the conclusions arising from that publication, what is the Minister's assessment of the effectiveness of her department in improving international poverty levels?
Minister.
Thank you. Lomborg is good, and we have taken much of his work into account alongside others of the effective philanthropy movement, such as Open Philanthropy and resources like GiveWell. Whilst I haven't yet read this particular publication, which only came out last year, I am familiar with the fact that Lomborg, amongst other things, maintains that targeted efforts can make a significant difference, which is exactly what we've done by structuring Jersey Overseas Aid in the way we have, focusing on 3 thematic areas, and where we can also add value and expertise.
Supplemental question, Deputy Southern?
Yes. Could the Minister suggest what progress has been made away from the physical building of community centres in Africa or wherever, and onto the adoption of a skills-based advice and assistance in Africa? What progress has been made?
I think the Deputy is referring to community work projects when he talks about building community centres. That is one very small aspect of our work, and we still send volunteers out there. We are now looking at sending skilled volunteers who can offer their skills, such as teaching, such as medics, and possibly in the future we'll look to veterans.
Deputy Jeune.
Thank you, sir. There's also another school of thought that development aid, specific development aid, only changes a small part of life, and actually looking more systemic causes of poverty in developing countries is the way forward. So could the Minister advise if any part of her role is to encourage policy coherence across government policies and initiatives to prevent unintended negative consequences on poverty reduction and the impact of climate change in developing countries.
Well, as the Deputy will know very well, we focus on conservation livelihoods, and I would say that all aspects of a project are taken into account, including the negative aspects that there may be. So it's a case of looking at a project in the round, the benefits versus the negatives, and I have to say that the projects that we support, the benefits always outweigh any negatives.
Sorry, so I'm not sure the Minister maybe misunderstood my question. I was asking if part of her role, she's looking at the government in Jersey and any policies or initiatives outside her remit who potentially could have an unintended consequence on poverty reduction in developing countries if she encourages and influences that policy coherence to ensure that there is wider benefits to the work she specifically does.
Well, I think it's whether you have a view across government for the purposes of identifying any policies not within your ministerial remit that might nonetheless touch upon the interests of your ministerial remit. Is that a fair assessment?
I'm not sure that relates to a book from the original question, but it's an aspect I would have to think about.
That was the first question. Do you have a supplemental question, Deputy Chair? It's not compulsory.
No, it's okay. Don't need to. I've got more later.
Right, very well. Final supplementary, Deputy Southern.
Yes, the Minister mentioned the use of teachers, or getting teachers involved in Africa. Could she inform members how many teachers have been involved in recent initiatives and for what periods?
I think we touched on this in the Good Deputies Scrutiny Panel hearing on Thursday. So this year is the first year we've sent teachers out, and we sent a cohort in our in the Easter holiday for 2 weeks, and we're sending another group of teachers in August. And they go for 2 weeks and they teach English in schools.
Well, we come to question 3. The Deputy Wall will ask the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what progress, if any, has been made regarding the delivery project to refurbish the Lido at Havre des Pas as included in the Government Plan 2024 to 2027?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and thank the Deputy for his question. So, work has been carried out on electrical safety and following the recent fire risk assessment conducted by fire safety consultants, and as recommended in their report, the following works will be undertaken over the next 3 weeks: upgrade of the fire detection and warning system, clear and up-to-date fire safety signage, additional emergency lighting, kitchen fire suppression system, and fire extinguisher replacement. So, as mentioned at the last state sitting, our focus is on our statutory requirements in the first place, and that work continues, and the cost of these works will be £51,000. A feasibility study on the delivery of the Lido externals is scheduled to be completed next week, and this will assess the best approach for remedial works on the cracking northern staircase tower and a full Lido external redecoration with estimated cost of £350,000.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes, thank you, sir. When it comes to refurbishing, and I thank the Minister for his answer, when it comes to refurbishing the Lido complex, how does the Minister measure the wider social and economic benefit to the island of this investment? Does he think that the wider return justifies what he recently described as a cost to his department?
So the Lido is just one of the island's assets, sir, and the balance that we have in maintaining those assets is clearly a difficult one. So we have to maintain our assets, and we have to do that in a timely manner when we have the funds available, and we'll continue to make sure that our statutory requirements on all of our properties are met first and foremost. Thank you, sir.
So I'm not sure I got that question answered about how does he measure the wider social and economic benefit to the island?
I'm not sure I heard an answer to that part of the question. Are you able to deal with that?
Sir, as I said, sir, we have many assets across the island, sir, and our focus is on the statutory requirements in the first place. Thank you, sir.
Well, that is the answer then. Deputy Gardner.
Apologies, I missed in the list of the things that will be done to Leiden Half Depot area. Would the Minister advise if the children pool maintenance, cleaning and refurbishment is on that list?
So the cleaning works, I think I mentioned in the last state sitting, sir, that we were scrubbing more frequently to try and prevent trips and falls, sir. Thank you.
But would Minister consider that the children pool require more than cleaning, that actually require refurbishment to ensure safety of swimming for children?
I will take that as a supplemental question, because it's not a general exchange. Supplemental question to that.
Sir, at the moment, sir, our focus is on the building, sir. Firstly, the safety within the building, then making sure that the building is as good as it can be. I will ask officers for an update at our ministerial on Thursday a reference to the pool. Thank you, sir.
Well, Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. And I appreciate the Minister saying that he's taking the statutory parts of the responsibility of the Lido seriously. With that, will the Minister confirm that the tenant will be issued notice when all works are being taken and in writing and in advance?
So I believe that we're obliged to do that with all of our tenants, sir, to advise them of when we're doing planned works, sir, and the only time we wouldn't do that if it's an emergency. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Coles?
Yes, sir. The tenant of the Lido has said to his constituency representatives that he has known representatives from Property Holdings attending their licensed premises without notice. Will the Minister please ensure that the notice is provided within the required time frame?
So I'm not sure of the details, sir, but I will certainly look at that and make sure that happens. Thank you, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Ward.
No, thank you, sir.
We come to question 4. The Deputy Reniff will ask the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy Reniff.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister provide an update on the results of the mortality learning review being conducted following the death of patients treated by the rheumatology department in the last 3 years? And will he also provide details on any other patient safety reviews taking place in the health department?
Minister.
Sir, the mortality learning review is actually an ongoing process that will take some time to complete. There's no conclusive or meaningful information available at this time, but an interim report will be compiled over the next month for presentation at the Health Advisory Board at the end of July. What I can say about this issue, sir, is that 5 cases to date have been referred to the Viscount. So it's well known that all areas of the hospital will be reviewed over the course of time, and it's inevitable that more problems will be found in certain areas. There are no new reviews underway at present, but we have identified the next area for review, and that process will begin in the next few weeks. Given, as I've already stated this morning, sir, that the first rule of good health, certainly in my view, is to put the patient first, I don't feel that it would be appropriate to broadcast what particular area this will be. In the event that little of substance is found to be wrong, all we would have achieved is to cause a great deal of unnecessary stress and anxiety to recent and current users of that service. And so I don't think that would be a very helpful approach, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Reniff.
Yes, sir. The Deputy Medical Director told Scrutiny on June 6th that 90 patients had been reviewed to see if their deaths were linked to treatment. Can the Minister say how many of these the expert panel thought should be referred to the Viscount?
So they're going through that process to refine how many get sent, and as I've already mentioned, 5 have already been sent to the Viscount. It's quite possible that more will be sent as well, sir.
Deputy Jeune.
Thanks, sir. The Minister committed earlier this year to an action plan to deal with the Royal College of Physicians report by the end of June. Is he on track to deliver that action plan?
So that's probably going to be slightly delayed.
Supplemental question.
Thank you, sir. There are 23 recommendations in the Royal College of Physicians report. Can he confirm if he first read the report and if he accepts all those recommendations, and will he be actioning them according to the timetable set out in the report? And if not, which recommendations does he not agree with?
That's a whole series of questions. The full radiology report, I have to confess I haven't read. I've read the summary. And, sorry, I've got to ask for the second part of that question.
If he's accepting the recommendations, and will he be actioning them according to the timetable that's set out in the report? And if not, why not?
Certainly, it's beyond my pay grade to argue with recommendations from people at the Royal College, sir. So the answer to that is yes. As far as whether we're going to apply get everything done in accordance with that timetable, that's something I'd have to go. I'd ask that question and happily let the deputy know how that's progressing against the stated timetable, sir.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. When does the Minister expect the mortality learning review to be completed?
Sorry, sir, which review would that be?
Mortality.
Mortality review. Have I not mentioned that there will be an update on that's given in July, so that's not going to be ready for some time. This, as I say, it's an ongoing process, sir, that's quite complicated, and it's expected to run for some time. I'll repeat that there will be an update on that at the next board meeting at the end of July.
Would the Minister present to the Assembly findings, actions plan, and would the Minister would be ready to answer the Assembly questions on the facts as it will be required?
I think that's an obligation on me, sir, so the answer to that would be yes.
Very well. Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister set out his understanding of the role of a Minister in relation to leading a department when such a review is ongoing and when other patient safety reviews may be ongoing?
No, sir, I don't think that's an appropriate question. It's not something I could answer properly in this sort of setting. I could provide a written answer to that. It's something I'd need to give some thought to, sir.
The answer is you're not in a position to answer that question at the current time.
I think that's safe to say.
So just for clarity, our Health Minister cannot explain what his understanding of his role is in relation to leading a department when we have a mortality learning review going on.
If I may say, I don't think that's a very sensible question to be asking in this setting, sir.
Well, I have to say, Minister, you're responsible for your ministerial office, and it's not unreasonable to ask what your understanding of the areas that you should cover and be across, and the things that you should do. I don't think that's outside the ambit of that or the question in connection with the mortality learning
I'll attempt
review.
to answer it on the balls of my feet. These situations are actually very complicated, sir. As a layperson, one comes to this job with a view to playing a political role. The first thing that I tend to do is to assess the people that I'm working around, whether I trust them or not. At this particular point in time, I trust the team that are doing the work, and I play what I consider to be an appropriate political role in working with those people to make sure that the best outcomes for the patient are achieved, sir.
Well, come now to, I beg your pardon, final supplementary, Deputy Renner.
Yes, sir. This is a government committed to openness and transparency according to the Common Strategic Policy. I raised with the Minister the point that the next board meeting is, I believe, after the Assembly has finished sitting. Therefore, will he commit to bring those recommendations, or the report, rather, of the Mortality Learning Review for discussion to the Assembly, as the Ministerial Code of Conduct suggests it should do, in terms of being brought before the Assembly, before it goes to the public, so that the Minister can answer questions about it in this place?
Certainly, that'll depend entirely on whether it's ready and prepared in time, sir.
We come to question 5 that Deputy Miles will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister provide details of any change in policy or process relating to the embargo of press releases?
Thank you, sir. There has been no change in policy. Embargoes enable us to share information with the media in advance so it can be communicated to islanders at the right time and to avoid delays in informing the public of important issues. The reasons to use an embargo can vary from the official publication time of reports to the need to inform individuals or groups particularly affected by government announcements in the first instance. The policy remains that news releases are shared with states members at least an hour before publication, sir, or an hour before the embargo is lifted. Thank you.
I thank the Chief Minister for that response. I'm a member of the Women's Health Political Group, and we were told last Wednesday at our meeting by a senior official, after some pressure, that Health had provided an embargoed press release to the JEP about an emerging story that related to women's health. Members of that group were very surprised to hear this, and none were aware, including both Assistant Ministers for Health and the Minister for Health and Social Security. In the light of the Ministerial Code about no surprises, does the Chief Minister think that it's acceptable that a political group responsible for women's health were not trusted with this information?
Yes.
Well, sir, the policy, the original question asked about the policy to the embargo press releases, and the policy relates to communication with states members. And I think outside of that, communication with interested bodies is a matter for the relevant minister to decide depending on the circumstances.
Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Can the Chief Minister advise what actions he and his Council of Ministers are taking to be more transparent with the full States Assembly on key issues that arise, especially given this seemed to be a strong part of the report and vote of no confidence, and indeed part of the own Chief Minister's speech when he became Chief Minister, and also in the CSP, and how he intends to improve this transparency?
Well, I hope we are being transparent. It's our policy to be transparent. We regularly discuss the importance of sharing information, especially with states members and the public. And if members don't feel we're being transparent in any particular issue, sir, I'd like to hear about it, and so we can deal with it accordingly. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy Chair?
Yes, sir. I therefore refer the Chief Minister back to the second question of Deputy Miles, where there was a group of politicians, including those within his Council of Ministers, who did not know about a very specific issue and matter, public matter, and that we felt that the people involved, the politicians involved, were not trusted with this kind of information ahead of the report on Monday being published in the JEP, but journalists were.
Yes, I'll certainly look into that. The policy is that before any department issues a media release, ministers and states members are informed, and if that hasn't happened, sir, we're trying to find out why.
Final supplementary, Deputy Miles.
Thank you. The Chief Minister...
Oh, I beg... Can I interrupt, Sir Martin? Did you put your light on, I'm afraid, slightly after I called the final supplementary?
Sorry.
The final supplementary, yes.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister often tells us that he prides himself on respect, courtesy and professionalism. Can he assure us that withholding information isn't going to become a feature of his government?
Yes, sir, and I will make sure I use every ounce of influence I have to ensure that we remain transparent and we don't withhold we don't hold information unnecessarily, sir. And I would urge members that if they hear of any such instances to bring it to me, sir, and I will certainly look at it and treat it with utmost seriously.
Well, we come to question 6. The Deputy Tadier will ask of the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. Further to the response to written question 230/2024, will the Minister advise why the 2023 government funding to Jersey Heritage was frozen at 2022 levels?
Thank you, sir. As the Deputy is aware, grant funding to Jersey Heritage almost doubled following the introduction of the 1% for arts, culture and heritage. And due to the fact that we have launched the arts strategy and the heritage strategy in 2022, both of which contained ambitious plans in order to deliver on these, including new initiatives, it was necessary between 22 and 23 to keep core grant funding to Jersey Heritage at the same level. That, though, sir, has been superseded in 2024 with a £360,000 increase in funding for Jersey Heritage, which equates to 6.5%. And so the grant today stands at 5.8 million, sir. Back in 2021, I believe it was 2.8 million. So between those years, there has been clearly a very significant increase in funding for Jersey Heritage Trust.
Thanks, sir. I don't think it's reasonable to compare to pre-1% levels. I think the Minister didn't really address why the funding had been frozen. I don't want to compare with other ALOs because I think it could be seen as divisive, so I won't quote exact figures. But it is the only ALO which didn't receive an increase from its 2022 figures. And the 6.6% that the Minister talks about only equates to a fraction of the 25% inflationary costs that the organisation has seen over a 2 or 3 year period. So can the Minister again try and explain why they had to accommodate a freeze, which of course meant that they didn't have enough to pay their staff a cost of living adjustment, when other organisations weren't given that freeze?
Sir, if I remember rightly, sir, and I did explain in the first part of my answer, is that there are many claims on the public purse, and certainly that's no different in the arts, culture and heritage sector. And so, sir, I was faced with requests for funding from many different areas, not just ALOs, but also small and individual organisations. And in order to satisfy those requests, whilst also implementing the arts and heritage strategies, I chose to keep the 2023 grant for Jersey Heritage at the same level as 2022. That, as I said, was a vast increase on 2021, sir. And as such, I believe that Jersey Heritage were able to understand their budget. They also, as Jersey Heritage Trust, have, unlike other ALOs, also have the ability to get subscriptions from members and also entrance and other means of raising funding, so operating essentially as a business. And so I felt at the time that they have the opportunity to raise extra funding in other ways, and so that was the appropriate thing to do for that year, sir.
Debbie Jean.
Thank you, sir. I'm new into this area and just read the arts strategy following this question. So could the Minister give an update on the new arts investment framework for Jersey as described in the arts strategy of 2022 and how it has leveraged additional resources for the arts?
So again, with the greatest respect, I'm not sure that follows from a question about funding for Jersey Heritage Trust, sir.
No, I'm afraid it doesn't. Obviously, supplemental questions have to be supplemental to the answers and supplemental to the ambit of the question, and I think that question is outside the ambit of the original question. Did you have another question you wish to ask at this point, Deputy Jean?
Yes. I could say, does the new arts investment framework include the Jersey Heritage, and how has that helped to leverage additional resources for the arts and for Jersey Heritage?
So work is ongoing in the arts investment framework, sir, and so I would have to check with officers whether it includes Jersey Heritage at this present time. I'm not able to answer that question clearly.
Did you wish a supplemental question, Deputy Jean?
Thank you. So it would also be good to hear from the Minister what the maximum uplift of the 1% the Minister believes has been achieved with this framework, and if this then could go towards Jersey Heritage in the future.
I'm afraid so. I didn't understand that question.
As part of the strategy, the new arts investment framework talks about maximising that 1% uplift, so additionally too. And so I was wondering if the Minister, when asking his officers for further information, can also find out about that specific uplift beyond the 1%, and if that will also be feeding into Jersey support for Jersey Heritage.
Of course, sir, I can do so.
Deputy Renouf.
So the the Jersey Heritage suffered a cut effectively with inflation of around 25% in its government grant funding as a result of that freeze. Wasn't the aim of the 1% to ensure that Jersey Heritage had the ability to meet the terms of the strategic partnership agreement that has been signed between the government and Jersey Heritage? And does he not accept that the cut would have meant that was very, very difficult to achieve?
Sir, I dispute the idea of a cut when, previous to the 22-23 year, I disagree with Deputy Tudyer when he says the 21 year previous to the 1% is irrelevant. I don't believe that is irrelevant. This was an organisation that had £2.8 million worth of funding. A year later, it had £5.5 million worth of funding. So I believe that in itself, that growth there, means that Jersey Heritage was able to meet its obligations going forward, sir. This is also to be put in the context that Jersey Heritage also received funding for Elizabeth Castle, sir, which is a major revenue project. And this year they have received an increase of funding of over 6%. So, sir, I believe that when we budget for ALOs, it is important that they work within their budget, sir. And given the almost doubling of Jersey Heritage budget from 21-22 back in 2022, I chose at that time not to increase their funding purely because there are many other calls. And as I am very aware, in a sense, Jersey Heritage could take all of the £11 million and still be asking for more, sir, from the 1%. So, sir, I believe that in order to make sure there's a thriving arts ecosystem, it is not just, the 1% is not just money for Jersey Heritage. It is 1% for the entire arts and culture ecosystem, as well as the entire heritage ecosystem. That means that difficult choices need to be made as to where funding is placed, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Reniff.
So my understanding is that when the 1% was brought in, one of the fundamental aims of it was to ensure that Jersey Heritage had a sufficient level of funding. Is he now claiming that the initial allocation of 5.5 million was over what they needed? Because he seems to be arguing that that it was relatively simple for them to accept a 25% cut in real terms after that increase.
No, sir, that is not what I'm claiming.
Final supplementary, Deputy Tuddy.
Thanks, sir. The whole point of the 1% was because there had been a decade of atrophy for the grants going to organisations, including Jersey Heritage. And now we are seeing a period of further atrophy under this minister, where in a period of 25% interest in inflation rates, this organisation, which does sterling work for Jersey in terms of its cultural heritage, or patrimoine, as the French might say, have got simply 6%, whilst other organisations got 23, 32, 29, and the budget for festivals went up by 53%, all of which are great because they do also good work. Does the Minister think that there's a risk if we push Jersey Heritage too far and cut their budgets relative to inflation too much? They may simply turn around and say, actually, the states can take back this castle. We don't any longer have the staff or resources to deal with it. And then what kind of position does the Minister think that would put the government and the people of Jersey in when it can't maintain its own cultural assets?
No, sir, I significantly and severely disagree with that suggestion. The idea that atrophy has happened under this minister. Let me remind the Assembly, sir, £2.8 million was paid to Jersey Heritage in 2021. In 2024, sir, £5.8 million is being paid to Jersey Heritage. That's in its core grant funding, sir. It is also receiving, I believe it's over £7 million, I believe it is, for the Elizabeth Castle project. It's £6.453 million for the Elizabeth Castle project, sir, and that remains ongoing. So the organisation receives over £11 million in funding at the moment, sir, from the government of Jersey. That is not atrophy. This is an organisation that received £2.8 million just 3 years ago, sir. So I understand that the Deputy is trying to portray it in a certain way, but that is not the way that either the accounts of Jersey Heritage or the reality can be seen, sir.
Well, we come to question 7. The Deputy Andrews will ask the Minister for the Environment. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what consideration, if any, has been given to a public funding strategy to achieve net zero carbon emissions? And if no consideration has been given, why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. So the development of a net zero financing strategy is an active work stream being taken on by officers at this time. At its heart, the strategy will identify how government will look at the costs of electrifying Jersey's vehicles and heating systems, alongside the work to minimise or remove all other forms of carbon emissions, and most importantly, how that will be paid for. This work represents Strategic Policy 3 of the Carbon Neutral Roadmap. The strategy will be informed by the principles agreed by this Assembly in the 2024-27 Government Plan. These principles include ensuring a just transition, the adoption of polluter pays measures, and minimising the burden to future generations. The strategy will need to secure the revenue required to deliver the carbon neutral roadmap and our transition to net zero. This is a major task and one which will need to be approached in phases. Officers are now developing policy proposals for the period 2026 to 30, so these can be costed, and also looking at the associated emissions reductions and having them modelled. Profiling the level and timing of expenditure is vital if we are to raise the right amount of money at the right time. But in specific answer to the Deputy's question, sir, officers are actively working on the strategy at this time.
Supplemental question?
Yes, please, sir. The Minister mentioned about having a phased approach, which is something that I happen to agree with. Is the Minister in support of having, say, a 3 or 4 year programme that is to be delivered, and then it will be reappraised with a new programme until 2050? Thank you, sir.
Sir, the first phase of any net zero financing strategy is going to be presented to the states in 2026. That will be the new States Assembly, together with the proposals for the roadmap delivery plan for the period 27 to 2030. This timing will ensure that the findings and recommendations of the Independent Climate Council regarding the first 4 years of carbon neutral roadmap can be properly taken into account. The Climate Council are due to report at during 2026, just before the general election, and the roadmap commits each new Assembly to approve the carbon neutral roadmap delivery plan for its term of government. Members will note, of course, sir, that the current plan is due to end in 2025, but I've decided that it can be extended for a year as a continuation year to ensure that our 4-year delivery periods are aligned with both the Assembly and the Climate Council.
Deputy Rendrith.
So I think the new announcement there was that this government will not be bringing forward any new funding proposals in terms of the carbon neutral roadmap. Is the Minister concerned that we will lose momentum in terms of the journey to net zero, given that commitment, given that news?
Minister.
So I'm extremely keen to make sure that we do not lose momentum. As the Deputy and Assembly will know, the Climate Emergency Fund is currently receiving 9p a litre in fuel duty and a proportion of vehicle emissions duty, and retaining and increasing these sources of revenue will be critical if we're going to have a realistic chance of meeting our emissions reductions targets, first of which falls in 2030. And before the Deputy asks the question, sir, the target, of course, he will know, is that by 2030 we're hoping to reduce by 68%. And I have to say, at the end of 2022, the island had only got 47% of the way into that target, which leaves us a real challenge, but one that I very much am up for and hope to get towards.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes, I thank the Minister for that reply. Will the Minister state whether he has any plans to find any extra sources of funding, perhaps by increasing the fuel levy or other measures, vehicle registration fees and so on, to enhance the Climate Emergency Fund during his term of office?
So the Deputy's alluding to something which is absolutely correct, which of course is that fuel duty and VED receipts are going to decline over time as we successfully and hopefully transition towards electric vehicles. And the most recent statistics I have is something over 40% of Jersey vehicles being registered in the last few months have been electric. So that is good, but we will need to supplement the Climate Emergency Fund with additional revenue in the next few years, and we're going to have to look at polluter pays taxes or charges and potentially capital from our own finance industry. Work has already commenced on fuel duty replacement policy in line with current government plan commitment, and we're also continuing to look at the tax charge levy on private jets at the airport.
Final supplementary, Deputy Andrews. Well, we come to question 8 that Deputy Porre will ask of the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Further to the current roadworks to resurface Val Pleasant and resultant traffic delays in the area, will the Minister advise why the resurfacing was scheduled for this particular time of the year and whether other dates were considered in relation of this work?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for her question. So the Department recognises that roadworks cause disruption and delay to people's daily lives, and it goes to great lengths to coordinate between all the organisations, such as utility companies and developers, that wish to work on the roads, as well as organisations that wish to close roads for events. When planning resurfacing works, these constraints have to be balanced among many other constraints against the length of time it takes to do projects, as well as the availability of the specialist contractor, as well as stakeholders that may be directly affected. The Department does seek to maximise the available school holiday periods. However, the contractors can only be at one place at one time. The resurfacing works planned and completed for the majority of school holiday periods in 2024 was already done before Valplaisir came into line. Montmele, for example, has to be done during school holidays and was done over the 2-week period at Easter. The urgent works at Valplaisir required a 3-week programme, and it was considered not to be suitable for summer school holiday project due to the impact on the town traffic during the high summer tourist period. So members and the public can get information on resurfacing plans for the next 4 years on roadworks.gov.je. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Porre.
Thank you. I thank the Minister for his thorough answer, much appreciated. With that in mind, has the Minister been able to address some of the issues that directly impact on the heavy traffic congestions, and if not, why not? Thank you.
So the team do their very best to give prior notice, not only by publishing things on the website up to 4 years in advance, but by publishing information in the media and also roadside signs. So inevitably, when we do major works, we do get problems. So this summer holidays, we are doing work on the Grand Route de Sablon so as not to impact on the school at Grouville with diversions. So lots of things have to be taken into account. And the traffic numbers dip slightly after the half term because of exams, and that's why that time was chosen. Thank you, sir.
Connie Tarbison-Brillard.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Minister for his comprehensive answer, and I have had similar experiences in a previous life of having to deal with roadworks which are never popular. But, Sir Tarbison-Brillard, we have had the experience over the last week or two of roadworks which were duly completed and satisfactorily, but the traffic lights controlling the works remained for 2 days after the work was finished. Could the Minister, sir, please give members the confidence that these jobs will be managed officially and minimise the disruption to the general public to the best of his ability? Thank you, sir.
Sir, I apologise to my fellow connoisseur if that was the case, sir. I certainly wasn't aware of that, and every endeavour is made to finish works on time, and clearly when works are finished, it's important that the traffic signs are removed. So I'll look into that case and report directly back to the Constable. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Councillor?
No, thank you, sir.
Final supplementary then, Deputy Moray.
Sir.
Well, we come to question 9 that Deputy Miles will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister explain why he has accepted a 6-month review of the contract of the Government Chief Executive when he's publicly stated that he'd like to see Dr McLaughlin stay at least until the end of the current government?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. I fully expect the Chief Executive to remain in post until after the next election. The 6-month review period that has been included by mutual agreement is to provide flexibility and an opportunity to ensure the arrangements continue to be right for the government and the public sector, sir, and of course Dr McLaughlin. It is a rolling contract, and the hope and expectation of both parties is that Dr McLaughlin will remain in post till at least the next election, sir, and beyond. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy Miles.
I thank the Chief Minister for that answer. If the current incumbent, for whatever reason, rolling contract or otherwise, did not wish to commit permanently, why did the Chief Minister not instruct his officials to restart a recruitment process for a permanent head of the public service that wouldn't be on a rolling contract?
I think the island and the public sector and the civil service need some stability right now. Dr McLaughlin had made a very good start in his role as interim chief executive officer, and it quickly became apparent when the new government took office that we could all work very well together. Dr McLaughlin was also open and upfront on the fact so that he had a previous commitment that he felt he had to honour in relation to a non-executive position, sir. So we went through that process. But the reason why, essentially, we didn't go back and start an open process again was to maintain that stability, sir. He was doing a very good job, and we hope he will stay with us for as long as possible to continue doing that.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Would the Chief Minister clarify if the contract is the fixed-term contract for 2 years, or is this contract for 6 months with option to extend further? What type of contract currently the Chief Executive has in place?
It is a contract for 6 months with an option to extend for a further 2 years should both parties agree, sir. And we felt that was sensible at this stage rather than enter into a permanent contract. Members will know that when permanent contracts are entered to senior staff on high salaries, sir, they are very expensive to get out of. So I would like to see, sir, and I believe the opinions of at least the majority of States Employment Board members agree that at that level we should perhaps look to more fixed-term contracts than permanent contracts, and that's a discussion we'll have in due course. But in this instance, sir, I think the arrangements are a very good fit for the circumstances, and both Dr McLaughlin and myself and the States Employment Board, and I believe the government, hope he stays until at least the next election and beyond. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy Gardner.
Thank you. When the options for the Chief Executive to continue his contract raised, the reason for this was stability. We need to have stability in the public service. Would 6 months contract provide the stability, and if what concerns, if any, Chief Minister has about stability and long-term vision for the 6 months contract for the Chief Executive?
I'm just trying to remember, so we've had 4 or 5 chief executive officers in as many years. The public sector do need some stability, some continuity, some stable leadership. So, and as I've just explained in the initial answer, it was deemed sensible to have a 6-month review period by mutual agreement to ensure that the arrangement continues to be right for government and the public sector and all parties moving forward, sir. I stick to that answer. That's why we've done it. And both Dr McLaughlin and myself, sir, have full confidence that that 6-month period will prove successful and will continue for at least until the next government and beyond.
Deputy Stevens.
Thank you, sir. Does the CEO's new contract include any increase in salary or wider benefits package when compared to his previous interim contract with the Government of Jersey? And if so, what has changed?
No, sir. It's the same terms and conditions.
Supplementary question?
And will there be a salary review after the 6 months?
I would expect that would be reasonable, sir. I understand the Chief Executive's salary has been fixed at £250,000 per annum for a number of years, and I think it is due for review. But there are no, as I understand it, no plans to do that, sir. But I think in the interest of fairness, it wouldn't be unwise to look at that at the appropriate time. Thank you.
I have Deputy Jeune, Deputy Wren of the Connaught Upper St Mary, then final supplementary. No further questions on this. Deputy Jeune.
Thank you, sir. Could the Chief Minister confirm if the Chief Executive has delivered on his key objectives under his first contract, and if not, why not?
I believe he has, sir. He's also presented his key objectives as proposed during his the remainder of the interim period, and when he returns, sir, we'll agree his next set of pre-objectives.
Supplemental question, Deputy Jeune?
Sorry, so just to confirm, there is, when he returns, then that will only be the time that the Chief Minister will go through any key performance indicators with the Chief Executive, or has that already been agreed in advance of signing the contract? And could the Chief Minister explain what is the performance management process and appraisal process that will be put in place for the Chief Executive?
The Chief Executive, before his interim contract expired, sir, and prior to his new contract starting on the 1st of July, did provide me with key objectives. We ran through them, sir, and I will pick that up again with him upon his return, and make sure we put in place the appropriate procedures to monitor how those are achieved. We haven't agreed that as yet, but it's high on our list of things to do when he returns, sir. Thank you.
Deputy Rev.
Yes, sir. I'm finding there's a bit of a contradiction here in the Chief Minister's answers. He talks a lot about wanting stability, which would imply a longer contract, but also arguing that a 6-month review is important in order for there to be a chance for everybody to review. What will happen if the Chief Executive decides to leave in 6 months?
We'll start a process for a new Chief Executive, sir.
Supplementary, yes.
So this highlights indeed this point about contradiction. That would surely be a highly unstable situation. We would have a situation where it would be a 6-month recruitment process. Which is the Chief Minister's priority here? Was his priority to gain stability and have a long-term contract with the Chief Executive, which the Chief Executive declined, or was his priority to have a 6-month review contract?
The priority of this government remains, sir, to reintroduce some stability to the way the island is managed, and not least through the public sector, sir. The Deputy was listening. He would have heard me say earlier that this contract was agreed mutually. Okay, so that means Dr. McLaughlin was content with the 6-month review period, and so was the government, because we think it's sensible to ensure that the arrangement continues to work, sir. And I went on to say that it is a hope and expectation of both parties, and for the avoidance of doubt, that's the government and Dr. McLaughlin, that he will remain in post to the next election and beyond, sir. And I'm not sure that by bringing up the issues about Dr. McLaughlin's employment or any public employee's employment in this assembly, in this public forum, is the right way to go about it. And I would ask members, sir, to have questions about the employment or the details of employment of senior members in the first instance. Come and talk to myself or the State's Employment Board, and we will gladly share all of the details and the rationale, sir. It's not always... I think it is a deterrent for senior employees to come and work for the States if they're going to be put on the spot in public forums time after time. So I think we have a very good arrangement. I think we have a first-class candidate, sir, and I look forward to working with him for the benefit of the island in the years ahead. Thank you.
Right up, St Mary.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister has referred to the Chief Executive having a non-executive appointment to which he was committed. Just for clarification, is the Chief Minister aware as to whether that commitment to such position will still be in play at the time of the review?
I believe it will, sir, but there's no time commitment to that commitment to a non-executive role, so it will continue as long as it works for Dr McLaughlin and the other party involved, sir. Thank you.
Final supplementary. Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. In the interests of transparency, will the Chief Minister agree to publish this 6-month fixed-term contract?
I'll discuss that with the State's Employment Board, sir. Thank you.
Well, we come to question 10. The Deputy Wilson will ask of the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Further to the Health and Social Services Panel quarterly hearing held on the 6th of June, will the Minister explain why the proposed changes to the Termination of Pregnancy Law 1997 in relation to women in Jersey who are on work permits have been prioritised above other changes?
Sir, the answer to this is very simple. A short while ago, I was advised that the Women's Health Political Advisory Group had identified this matter as a high priority, and it's something that I and Deputy Howell also thought to be very important. Accordingly, sir, I took the opportunity to make an announcement to the effect that I'd be addressing the matter as soon as possible. As it happens, shortly after that, I received an email from Deputy Feltham, who very kindly attached a copy of the minutes of the Women's Health Political Advisory Group's meeting of the 16th of June, which, at item 2A, in relation to this matter, expressed the desire to seek a one-off law amendment to remove the current residency requirement by the end of 2025, pre-PERDA. The minutes go on to state the following. The removal of the current legal residency requirement before the next government term was felt to be of higher priority to enable the provision of service for women on short-term visas who are not ordinary resident and have not been here for 90 days. So, sir, it was very pleasing to see that the Women's Health Political Advisory Group were indeed keen on this matter being prioritised, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. One of the concerns I think that the Minister hasn't addressed is how he's prioritising the development of this law. I mean, we have a constant flip-flapping about what is important. So when is he going to produce a piece of legislation that actually supports women to manage their own fertility in a way that is acceptable? And when will we expect to see that legislation coming forward?
So I'm not entirely sure that that relates directly to the question, and I certainly don't know where the evidence is of any flip-flapping. I've said quite categorically that I've been advised in the first instance by the Women's Health Group, sir, and I'm continue to take that approach, and as I'm sure is Deputy Howell, who looks after these matters more closely. I don't see that there's much more that we can do than be guided by these good people, sir.
Deputy Renouf.
So I think for evidence of flip-flapping, we might say that in his hustings for the Health Minister, the Minister said in response to a question from Deputy Jern about continuing the termination of pregnancy review, on the face of it, that sounds very sensible. I would assume that the answer would have to be yes. At the Health Scrutiny Panel, which Deputy Wilson has already referred to, Deputy Howell said that the termination of pregnancy work had been stopped for lack of resources. Then at the weekend, the Minister said he was trying to get it back on track. Can he confirm exactly what is happening with the termination of pregnancy review?
Once again, I'm not sure that that relates to the question, but I'm very, very happy to answer it. So we have limited resources. I've made it plain that I'm very keen to see all of these issues being prioritised. We did lose somebody from the policy department recently. I'm using my best endeavours to get that person replaced, and I'm actually putting in a request for an additional person in order to take these matters forward. I've been clear about that all along, sir, and I don't see there's any ambiguity about anything that I've said.
Supplemental question. Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Just to follow on from that question, when does the Minister expect to have clarity on that position, when he will know whether those attempts to find additional resources have been approved, and therefore we know for definite that the work can go ahead?
Once again, I don't think that's terribly related to the question, and I won't know till I know, sir. As I say, I'm using my best endeavours. I can do no more than that.
Supplementary question. Final supplementary then, Deputy Wilson. We come to question 11. The Deputy Andrews will ask the Minister for External Relations. Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what consideration, if any, he has given to publishing local credit lenders' interest rates and terms to help islanders make informed decisions when considering loans and mortgages? And if this has not been considered, will he contemplate this in the future?
Minister.
Thank you. So, government publishing the rates and terms of lenders would not be appropriate. The JFSC has engaged with banks to ensure appropriate information is available to the public and that banks are ensuring through their pricing that customers are treated fairly.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Yes, please, sir. In the UK, mortgage lenders will have their information often accessible, so people can look at the best rates that are made available. But does the Minister for External Relations believe that there is potentially facility for that to happen, but it might not involve the Minister directly?
The Deputy makes a very good point. It is important that rates and terms are available clearly to the public. That is the issue that the JFSC has raised with banks directly so that they do. I do think that there is an argument, as we see elsewhere across the globe, for consumer bodies to do price comparisons, not just in this area, but right across the Jersey economy. And it is my intention, in light of their recently published review about mortgage rates, to have a conversation with them.
Well, we come to question 12. That Deputy Reniff will ask the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Will the Chief Minister advise the Assembly on his approach to dealing with conflicts of interest among the Council of Ministers and further provide detail on what advice, if any, Ministers have received about how to deal with conflicts of interest?
Thank you, sir. My approach to conflicts of interest largely reflects to that of the previous Council of Ministers, which the then Chief Minister outlined in a response to written question 54 in 2023 from Deputy Feltham, for example, declaring conflicts of interest at the beginning of meetings of the Council of Ministers or withdrawing from a discussion. Members will know that an updated version of the Ministerial Code was published on the 27th of February, and that's R31 2024, sir, and those aspects relating to conflicts of interest, I believe, were clarified and strengthened in that report. So additionally, the supplementary guidance to the Ministerial Code of conflict of interest published by the last government is still in place and can be found at gov.je, sir. I would note that ministers and assistant ministers will have been offered the same induction, training and advice provided by the State's GREF as relates to the Members' Code, and that's set out in Schedule 3, sir, to standing orders, which applies to ministers and assistant ministers as well, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary question.
Yes, sir. The Ministerial Code to which the Chief Minister referred, R31.6 says executive members must identify and actively manage any conflict of interest between their ministerial responsibilities and their private interests, not limited to financial interests, which includes their personal affiliations, charitable and family interests. Does the Chief Minister accept that this means that ministers should declare to officers when they are dealing with matters regarding people they know or with who they have business relationships?
I think it depends on the circumstances. It's not always possible in Jersey. We all tend to know everybody else, and I think it would be impractical if we had to declare every time we knew somebody, sir. Ministers have made declarations at Council of Ministers where they consider an actual or perceived conflict of interest may exist, sir, and I believe that continues to be the case. So the treatment of that declaration, of course, depends on its nature, with the course of action either being for the minister to remove themselves from the meeting or having made the declaration to decide to remain. Ultimately, it's a decision for the Chief Minister and the declaring minister, so in each instance to determine how they wish to proceed, sir. And to date, it is my belief that process has been operating well, sir. I'm not aware of any failures to date. Thank you.
Very well. We come to question 13 that Deputy Ward will ask of the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister, in her capacity as shareholder representative for Jersey Post, advise whether the same 30 to 50% increase in small parcel postal rates have been applied to both international online retailers who use Jersey Post and local businesses? And if not, will she explain why?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Deputy for his question. So the increases applied to international retailers and local businesses are different. However, it's important to note that the range of local price increases have actually been less than 30%, depending on service and destination. Export prices reflect a continued increase in transport and delivery costs that Jersey Post itself has charged, while prices for customers sending mail to Jersey are affected by the threat of losing critical volume to competitors. For goods travelling from Jersey, Jersey Post is buying services and are dependent on the amount by which its suppliers increase rates, particularly Royal Mail, who is the only regulated operator able to deliver across the UK for a single price, but also Condor, who increased its rates by more than 18% this year. For goods delivered to Jersey, Jersey Post acts as a supplier whose ability to increase prices is limited by the need to compete with other potential delivery operators. The economic reality of the market is that Jersey Post is financially dependent on delivering volume from the likes of Royal Mail and Amazon, while Jersey's volume to the UK and elsewhere is relatively insignificant in comparison. Thank you, sir.
I thank the Minister for her answer. I would just quickly say that...
If you could just pause for a moment.
Sorry.
We're now in Core 8, I believe, and I could... Deputy Curtis online, we're not in Core 8. Thank you very much. Please do continue, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Thank the Minister for her answer. And I would just quickly clarify, I've got two examples here where prices have increased between 2021 and 2024 by up to 45%. To come back to my follow-up question is then, there's a private company which has successfully offered next-day services to the UK at lower rates than those charged by Jersey Post for 2- and 3-day services. Why has Jersey Post not considered adopting similar methods to better serve the residents and businesses of Jersey as originally intended by its incorporation?
Sir, I think there's quite a lot in that question. Firstly, I think the increases... I think the Deputy said that the increases were over a period of 2021 to 2024. That's a 3 or 4 year period, and we have seen inflation rise dramatically in that period. So, and as I say, Jersey Post's own costs from its own suppliers have been increasing dramatically over that period. I can't speak for why. As I've said, Jersey Post has to set its rates based on what they can afford. They cannot risk losing critical volume to big suppliers. And I'm sure they aim to provide services to local businesses and local suppliers as economically as they can within the context of the market. Thank you.
We come to question 14, that Deputy Tadier will ask the Minister for External Relations. Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether any work is currently being undertaken to create a double taxation agreement with Portugal, and if no such work is being undertaken, please explain why?
So the European Relations team in my department hold regular discussions with Portuguese counterparts and have highlighted Jersey's interest in having a double taxation agreement, though we are realistic that this process can take some time. In the meantime, it should be noted that Jersey and Portugal already have in place a tax information exchange agreement in force since 2011, which enables closer collaboration between our respective competent authorities for the purposes of tax administration.
Supplemental question, Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. So I was directed to put this to the Minister for External Relations, but this is also a question which I think impacts on the Tax Department and also perhaps on the Minister for International Development with her culture and responsibility for Jersey diaspora. I asked this question in the context of former Jersey residents who are now living in Portugal to make sure that they're not being double taxed, and to make sure that they know what steps are being taken and what resources are available for them in terms of their tax management, especially if they're on low taxer. So will the Minister undertake to also speak to fellow ministers, the two that I mentioned, to have a coordinated approach in this regard?
So it is a desire of Jersey's government, and it has been for many years, to have a double taxation agreement with Portugal and with some other member states, but as of the European Union. But as the Deputy knows and appreciates, that is not straightforward. We, unlike some other jurisdictions, don't have very many double taxation agreements. It doesn't mean to say we don't mention them with all of our engagements with those member states for the reasons that he has said. It is a coordinated approach between the External Relations Department, the Treasury Department, particularly Revenue Jersey's International Division, and of course my Assistant Minister, who has responsibility for engagement with those groups in Jersey and the problems that they may face. Of course, where there are no double taxation agreements in place between Jersey and another jurisdiction, tax can potentially be charged in both places. That's the negative. Jersey's income tax law does, however, allow for some reliefs to be given for taxes paid overseas when calculating the amount of Jersey tax due, and other countries have similar rules. The question, I suppose, is, are those individuals who are moving between jurisdictions aware of those and engaged with Revenue Jersey? And that would be my first piece of advice to them.
Everyone.
Yes, so the Minister says that we need to be realistic about the timetables. Can he state, does he have any idea how long it would take to put a double taxation agreement in place?
That really depends on the interlocutor. We follow the OECD model double taxation agreement, which can mean, in some cases, it can be done relatively quickly. But relatively quickly in the world of international agreements is 2, 3, 4 years, where you don't have a willing partner as such, and you constantly have to make the case for why it's in the not only the benefit to Jersey. This is about free movement of people between those jurisdictions. A case has to be made of benefit to the then host country. It can take decades.
Supplemental question, Deputy Reynolds?
Yes, so can I put it another way slightly then, which is to say, where does Portugal sit in the list of priorities for double taxation agreements that the island is seeking?
That's a good question, which is difficult to answer, because there are a number of European member states that, from a Jersey perspective, would be a high priority for double taxation agreements. When this question first was submitted, it occurred to me that I have been talking to Portuguese interlocutors, as has previous occupiers of this office ever since it was created, around having a double taxation agreement. So it remains high on our agenda, but I think we have to be realistic that it doesn't remain high on the agenda of other member states.
Deputy Kovac.
Thank you, sir. The Minister said he's also seeking to have agreements done with other European Union member states, and also that are other states on high priority list for the department. Can the Minister mention which are those states?
Well, let's be clear. They should be obvious to us. They are countries which are either geographically close to us, so our nearest neighbour to the east, but also countries where we enjoy the benefit of large diaspora from member states.
Supplemental question, Deputy Kovac? Final supplementary, Deputy Taddy.
Can I thank the Minister initially for his answer? Given the fact that we do have large and established immigrant populations here who are now residents of Jersey, would the Minister give an undertaking to liaise not only with those ministers I mentioned earlier, but also with the consuls for example, that represent Portugal, Romania, Poland and maybe other countries in Jersey, to raise these issues both locally for discussion and also when the Minister and the consuls are meeting with ambassadors in international cultural diplomacy, sir.
So, as I indicated, my Assistant Minister has responsibility for engagement with diaspora and consuls here. I know it is an issue which she takes very seriously and either has or will be raising in an ongoing nature. The point about raising it when there are meetings between honorary consuls and inbound or external visits of ambassadors is a good one and has been raised in the past and will continue to be raised. We also have to be, unfortunately, honest with ourselves that post-Brexit engagement with EU member states, particularly in regard to these international treaties, even though we are entrusted to enter into them, have become much more challenging and they were difficult prior to Brexit.
Well, come to question 15. The Deputy Porrier will ask of the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Deputy Porrier.
Thank you, sir. Further to the Barriers to Business report, will the Minister advise how he plans to tackle the retention and recruitment issues detailed therein? Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for her question. Sir, last month I published the response to the Barriers to Business report. It was entitled Enabling Business, and it provided an update against the 38 recommendations made by Jersey Business. Specifically with regards to the barrier of the availability of skills and people, which is a genuine and severe barrier in Jersey, work is underway to launch a skills development scheme in 2024, which will include the ability to attract more people with entitled or entitled for work status into careers in Jersey, whilst also offering new training and apprenticeship pathways. Work is also underway to provide support for employers and employees as we transition into a living wage, including support on work permits. We are also reviewing housing controls within the Control of Housing and Work Law. This work is already underway, and planning guidance on minimum residential space standards was updated last year. So as the Assembly will realise as I read through that list, much of this work is actually under the auspices of other ministers. And so the work I undertake there, sir, is to engage with those ministers and their teams to help them work through these programmes to ensure that we have an island that is attractive to people for work and attractive to people to stay here in the long term, sir. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy Porrier.
Thank you, sir. Following on the theme of support for small businesses, has any consideration been given to support small businesses during the proposed up-and-coming bank holiday to commemorate the King's visit to the island? Thank you.
Sir, an interesting supplemental point, sir.
Well, I'm afraid I don't think reference to the upcoming King's visit falls within the ambit of the original question, Deputy. Are you able to reframe the question in some way? Sorry, no further supplement. Very well. In which case that brings...
So is the time up, or I had my light on?
Oh, I beg your pardon, Deputy Chairman. No, the time is not up, and I should have called upon you. Yes, Deputy Chairman.
Thanks, sir. I don't know the latest figures, but a recent estimate suggested that there might have been up to 4,000 people living in Jersey of working age who don't yet have their 5 years qualies, but they're living here already, they're working here already in some jobs, they just can't work in all jobs. So does the Minister think that that is an untapped resource where some of those skills, which they maybe can't use fully, could be applied into the local economy for the island's benefit without necessarily needing to look for yet more workers to come in to do jobs which these people might be able to do?
Thank you, sir. The question effectively asks for my opinion on this. I personally would like to see a more flexible system, sir, where people can move across jobs. But I also appreciate, sir, that when it comes to immigration and into the island, we are also under the auspices of the United Kingdom, and there are controls and regulations which work together and sometimes work against each other. And so, sir, I could not say, hand on heart, whether I think it is achievable that we could have a more flexible system or not, but it is one that I personally would prefer to see.
Supplemental question, Deputy Secretary.
Thanks, sir. And does the Minister agree that the 5-year rule, in fact, so if we talk about immigration, these people are already here, so it's not an immigration mechanism. It hasn't stopped people coming to the island. It simply says which type of jobs they're allowed to work in. That this is a form of red tape. It is a barrier to business. It's also a barrier to those workers. Does the Minister not agree that that's a barrier which could easily be removed within our powers and within Jersey's ambit to do that, and therefore to take down some obvious barriers that do already exist?
Sir, I'm not sure I do agree that it is easy to do that, sir, but I will certainly engage with the Home Affairs Minister to understand how easy or not that is, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Pori.
No, thank you.
Very well, that brings that section of questions with notice to an end. We now move on to questions without notice. The first period is for the Minister for Infrastructure, Deputy Andrews.
Thank you very much, sir. Can I ask the Minister whether he is considering removing the bus stop 3983 in Grandvaux?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for his question. The bus stopping that he refers to, sir, is currently with the St Helier Roads Committee as it is a parish road. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question. Deputy Renouf.
So can the Minister state what offers, if any, have been made to any organisation regarding future uses of Le Creux?
So there have been no formal offers made to anybody about the future use of Le Creux. We continue to look at our options for Le Creux, so I certainly sincerely hope that sport continues to be played there. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Can the Minister offer any guidance at all about what kind of uses are being, what kind of discussions are being had with what kind of organisations?
So we have a number of organisations who are existing tenants of the state of Jersey, Government of Jersey, sir, and we continue to discuss with those the potential to move. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Wall.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure the Minister is aware that water polo has been played at Havre des Pas for over 100 years. In fact, the government.je website says the pool offers Jersey's only deep water pitch for water polo. A major challenge for the club is the storage of equipment at the complex. There is a very simple solution to this issue, yet every suggestion put forward by the club has to date been rejected. Will the Minister please direct his department to work constructively with the club to ensure the future success of water polo on this island?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I didn't understand the full history of water polo, and I can confirm that nobody has approached myself with either of my infrastructure or my sports hats on, sir. If they want to approach me with my water polo hat on, sir, I'd be happy to talk to them.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes, I thank the Minister for his question. Look forward to seeing the water polo hat. The Water Polo Club has been asked to sign an event licence to use the public space at Havre des Pas, despite being unable to cordon off the area. Is the Minister aware of the same conditions have been applied to the Jersey Swimming Club as part of their annual Christmas Day swim or any other pool user groups?
So that's a serious question, sir. I'm not aware of the requirements of either of those organisations in particular, but if people want to use our facilities, the general consensus is they have to sign a user agreement, sir. That covers us as a property holder, but also them as an organisation, sir. I don't know the specific details, but I'm happy to get back to the Deputy.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister update about the state of the First Tower School playing field?
Yes, I'd be happy to confirm to the Deputy that the pre-planning application went in on the 4th of June, and we expect to hear an answer in around 4 weeks' time, which is July the 2nd. Until last Friday, sir, we'd had no reply, and the team lead in charge is off this week, so I'll have an update on Monday. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you.
Deputy Jean.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister give further details regarding the public realm strategy that, according to the Chief Minister at his Chamber of Commerce speech last week to an answer to a question, is coming soon, and what role the Minister has in developing this strategy, given that the Chief Minister mentioned that Deputy Binet is the Minister in charge of delivery?
Thank you, sir. Thank the Deputy for her question. So we are working on a number of areas within the public realm. We have got a task force for implementation that we're looking to set up that will include a number of ministers, including myself, including the Constable of St Helier, housing, sustainable economic development, and the plan is for us to report to the RSG, sir, before the end of July, sir, with the terms of reference for that group. Thank you.
Supplemental question?
So just to confirm that the Minister for Health has not got a role in this public realm strategy, which goes against what the answer was from the Chief Minister in the Commerce lunch last week.
Sir, the Deputy Chief Minister will be involved in those discussions, sir, and will be part of that team. Thank you, sir.
Very well. Deputy Aye.
Thank you, sir. In the previous assembly, the Minister, in response to an oral question on holiday pass, said, in the last 2 years, we've had no revenue, we've had no money for utilities and no rental income. If the current tenant has not paid any rent, why is he still allowed to remain on the premises? Thank you, sir.
I thank the Deputy for his question. So we continue to be in dialogue with the current tenant, sir, and we hope to be in a position to sign a lease in the very near future. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Aye.
Does the Minister think it would be appropriate to put the lease out to tender instead? Thank you.
Sir, my personal preference would obviously be to put the lease out to tender, sir, but this Assembly made a commitment to try and enter into a lease, and we're trying to honour those commitments. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Last June, this Assembly approved the FB Fields Enabling Law to allow a more flexible approach to any future use of the site. Can the Minister provide an update to the Assembly on the FB Fields project and confirm whether or not he plans for any funding to feature in the government plan, either at a feasibility level or a wider level?
I thank the Deputy for her question, sir. So I recently met with officers following the first few months of my tenure within sport, sir, and part of that was around looking at the jigsaw that we've got in terms of moving parts to create space at the FB so that we can create some better sporting facilities and leisure facilities at the FB, sir. So the reason that we've put a bid in for the Island Games in 2035, sir, is to allow us time to actually get the infrastructure that's required to host such an event, and that would include the FB Fields for athletics. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question? Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister explain what is happening with the plans for the dumping of waste at Lac Colette?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, the Deputy, for a question. Sir, that we're currently out in a tender process, so I can't say too much about the tender process, but I will be attending the Planning Committee, I believe it's on the 11th of July, where we have plans for La Colette. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question?
Thank you, sir. Do any of those plans include transporting the waste off island?
Sir, the tender process is underway, sir, and it would be wrong for me to talk about any particular details. I believe at this time that's the advice I've been given, sir. I'd be more than happy to brief members as soon as that tender process has finished. Thank you.
Deputy Kovac.
Thank you, sir. The RNO 25 per 2024 Road Traffic Speed Limits Amendment Order 2024 from the last order paper on the last sitting shows that speed limits have been amended on 4 streets in San Brelad, 1 in St. Lawrence, and 21 areas in St. John where the Minister is constable. Can the Minister please advise how these decisions were made? What was the shortest and longest length of time for the changes to come in place from the request from residents to enactment for the streets in his parish? What were the process steps, and if any consultation was needed for any of these changes, and with whom?
Thank you, sir. So I believe that St. John's specifically has been some 20 years in the making, sir. So certainly my immediate predecessor, had been working on getting road speeds reduced. And so I have been trying tirelessly in the 3 years that I've been in office to get those speed limits changed. So one of the things that I've done since I've become Minister is to look at how we do things and the time it takes. The length of time we spend in consultation before we actually enact things, the amount of use we have of consultants who are based in the UK who don't know our local roads. And so I'm really trying hard with the team to shorten the time it takes to introduce new speed limits where they're very much needed. We've got the island policy which says built-up areas should be X and bays should be Y. So we just need to crack on and do that, sir. And I'm trying to work my hardest with the team to shorten the time, sir, into months, not years. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Yes, can the Minister please still explain the process steps? And in mind with this process, can he please update on the progress of speed limit changes or placing speed bumpers request on La Rue de Près in Saint-Xavier that myself and quite a few residents there asked for both in writing and in person, together with the related monitoring also evidenced in the past few years, and by when we should expect to have a decision implemented?
So, there are many roads in many parishes where we've had requests to reduce speed, sir. So, as I've just explained, currently it's a very lengthy process, and that doesn't include funding, which also has to be taken into account. So I hope to make those decisions in months rather than the current place, which is years. And when I say years, it means multiple years. The Constable of Grouville is not in agreement. Grouville asked for green lanes when the Constable was first elected. They still haven't got them. I think it takes far too long, and I'm working hard with officers to shorten that time. Thank you.
Deputy Tadier.
I don't need to ask my question.
Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister tell the Assembly how many times he's met with taxi drivers and whether he has any plans to amend the regulations under which they operate?
Thank you, sir. Thank the Deputy for a question. Sir, I've met with the taxi drivers on 2 occasions. The last was last Wednesday at St John's Parish also. Was delighted to host them. So I think that taxi regulation needs to be simplified. So I'm also keen to introduce mystery shoppers. So when I visit other islands, the taxi drivers are ambassadors. And we've got a number of ambassadors driving taxis in Jersey, but sadly we've got many who aren't ambassadors. And so I hope that we can increase not only the experience for those people riding, but also for the taxi drivers themselves. Thank you.
Supplemental question?
I have another question, sir, if I may.
It should be a supplemental question. Can you make it a supplemental question, or shall I call you on a second question?
If you call me later.
There may not be opportunity, but very well. Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. Given the 2 instances with electric e-scooters over the last 4 days, can the Minister please provide an update on what's happening with the road traffic law around e-scooters?
Sir, thank the Deputy for that question. Sir, these 2 incidents involve individuals, and we wish both a full and speedy recovery. So I was asked a very similar question, I think it was at the last sitting, by Deputy Ayer. So currently the use of e-scooters remains illegal on public roads, pavements, and in other open public spaces. The only exception is their use on private land with the landowner's permission. So clearly there's been a lot of interest. We've all received correspondence from interested parties. Some of those people want us to regulate for them. Some of us want us to police the ban of them. So I've spoken to a number of ministers, and we're going to place this on a near future Council of Ministers agenda where we can have a full discussion. Thank you.
Supplemental question? Deputy Alex Curtis, sorry.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister provide an update and further details on the proposed lease of car parking spaces in Lempriere Street car park and the requirement for those?
Thank you, sir. I took a long time in signing the lease for the Lempriere car park, sir. The lease is for pool cars for the Government of Jersey employees who will be based at the new headquarters and who will need to move around the island's estate to see people. So the reason that I wouldn't sign the lease was because there was no policy on the use of those pool cars, and I would only sign the lease once that policy was in place. I'm pleased to tell members that policy is now in place. Thank you.
Supplemental question?
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise how long the lease is for and where the cars are currently stored and used from?
I'll have to get back to members about the length of the lease. I think it's in the report, so I apologise for that. So we currently have pool cars at places like Highlands College for education, La Collette for property holdings, and a number of other areas around the island, Maritime House. So these cars will be coming into one place and hopefully will be more efficient using a smaller pool. Thank you.
Might be time for one part of the question. Conor Talbot, St Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. May I say I did put my light on immediately you called for questions earlier. I thought you'd seen me, so I turned it off. Yes, so to the Minister, the former Infrastructure Minister committed in this Assembly to maintaining and improving the weed areas on the Central Reservation on Victoria Avenue. I haven't seen any improvement since that commitment. Will the Minister commit to doing that within his tenure, please, sir?
Sir, I'm happy to commit to doing that, sir. Outsourcing works well in some areas and doesn't work well in others. And I've been asking about how those contracts are managed and also what is planted in each area. I can assure members that the area in question will be sorted out within the next 2 weeks, sir. Thank you.
That brings question period for this Minister to an end. In response, Conor Talbot, St Lawrence, if I could ask members if they have their lights on, wait until I make direct eye contact with the member and nod, and then it's safe to turn the light on off. Otherwise, there's a possibility that I simply won't have done so. Very well. The next question period is for the Minister for International Development. Any questions for this Minister? Deputy Jeune.
Thank you, sir. Having watched the Minister's scrutiny hearing last week, the Minister stated that Jersey Overseas Aid Commission is independent from government. Could the Minister advise what makes JOAC independent from government while the Minister, who is also the Assistant Minister for External Relations, is chairing it?
Yes, thank you for the question. I am Minister for International Development, and I also chair Jersey Overseas Aid, which is made up of independent commissioners, 3 independent commissioners and 2 other states members. And all those decisions that we make on our programmes are taken within the Commission. So it is in the law an independent body. That's how it's described. I think it's the only one that the states have like this, so we're quite unique. I am a minister and was made minister, that there was a minister over Jersey Overseas Aid from 2018, and this has been hugely beneficial to have input into strategies and to secure budgets and to have an input around the Council Ministers' table with our important work. I am Assistant Minister for External Relations with specific duties to carry out and progress the island identity initiatives. All the portfolios are outward facing.
Supplemental question, Deputy Jeune.
Yes, thank you. Under the Public Finance Law 2019, JOAC is classified as a specified organisation listed with Andium, Jersey Post, JT Group, Ports of Jersey and SOJDC. So could the Minister explain why there is, it seems, a difference between JOAC and these other specified organisations in terms of governance and accountability? And can the Minister confirm she's the lead minister under the Public Finance Law for JOAC?
I believe that she's referring to the accountable officers, not the description of the organisation in the law. For that, you'd have to go back to 2005, when Jersey Overseas Aid, instead of being a committee, became a commission when we went into ministerial government. We are answerable to the Chief Minister and the States Assembly.
If there are no questions for this Minister, then I close. Deputy Kovac.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister explain how often in her effort of promoting the island identity and setting the agenda for the ministerial work is her meeting with the consuls or representatives from the other workers on the island?
Yes, I've made contact with the consuls in the island, and we plan, and I've got a meeting coming up in July with one of them, but we plan to have a collective meeting. I've met with others to share ideas and see how we can support and facilitate and what they what information they want and what kind of support they would like to see. But we are there to facilitate them because obviously they are appointed by their own countries.
Supplemental question? Deputy Renouf.
Yes, just further to Deputy Jean's comment. The Minister said that the Jersey Overseas Aid Commission is independent. But it seems that it's independent just because it says it's independent. Can she explain how having a chair having the Minister as chair, when that role is not fulfilled the chair role is not fulfilled in any other relevant similar organisation by a Minister, guarantees its independence?
Because all the decisions that we make have to be made in the Commission by commissioners. I can't make a decision like other ministers can without any reference to them for our programmes. However, when we connect with government around the Council of Ministers table, I can make decisions as a minister for example, our budgets and have input to the strategic plan. So it's our programmes, our development programmes that are completely independent.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
So it does seem odd that, for example, the Housing Minister does not chair the Board of Andium and no other Minister chairs one of these boards. Would the Minister be prepared to look at this and consider ways in which we might strengthen the independence of the Overseas Aid Commission?
I have no need. I think it works perfectly well as it is, sir. If the Deputy wants to pursue that line, he can and come and speak to us. But we feel that our strength is the Commissioners. It means that we are arm's length to government, therefore we are not politicised with our decisions. We're very, very happy with the arrangement as is. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. As Jersey Overseas Aid provides a lot of support for African countries, would the Minister advise what engagement she has with Friends of Africa in Jersey?
Other than, I know they have cultural events over here, my role is overseas aid, and that's my engagement with those particular countries. I have in the past had communications with some of the community who wanted to set up a charity, and that sort of thing, but I wouldn't necessarily engage with that particular group any more than any other group in the island. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Gardner.
Thank you for the Minister. I'm not sure if Minister aware that Friends of Africa is registered charity and they have raised funds to provide support to the communities within Africa. Saying this, they don't have consuls, but they are representative of African community. Would Friends of Africa, would the Minister consider that Friends of Africa is an important stakeholder that needs to be engaged with going forward as the Minister engaged with consuls?
We are always more than happy to receive people, to have them in our office to explain what we do. And if they feel that they want to fundraise and do international development projects in Africa, we can look at ways whereby we could match fund and things like that. We're more than happy to receive them if that's what they want.
Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister inform members what attention she has paid to the Copenhagen Consensus, which talks about the most efficient ways of getting help to countries, in particular in Africa, and how her research, her actions on behalf of overseas aid contribute to that?
I'm not familiar with that particular work, but we have structured, as I said in my earlier question when I was answering about the book, the Lombard book, we have structured Jersey Overseas Aid to target to target our aid to be as cost effective as possible. We have smart investments, which means that we have interventions that can yield the greatest benefits. And we have an evidence-based approach.
Supplemental question? Any other questions for this Minister? I close this period of questions. The remaining questions are for the Chief Minister. Deputy War.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister is well aware that we are currently in a cost of living crisis. Does he consider it reasonable, therefore, that Jersey Property Holdings are looking to increase the rent charge to the incumbent tenant at the Havre des Pas Lido by 300% from their initial offer on the 3rd of April this year to their latest offer on the 13th of June this year? I'm sure his colleagues, the Minister for Housing, would consider this type of activity by a landlord as a revenge eviction. Will the Chief Minister intervene in these negotiations so that the future of the Lido and of the incumbent tenant is secured for the benefit of all those who use this jewel in our national heritage?
Thank you, sir. And I agree with one aspect of the Deputy's question. The Fars Lido is an important asset for the island, and we want to see it being used properly and enjoyed by as many islands as possible. I believe the Minister articulated carefully in an answer to a recent question that they were upholding the wishes of the Assembly and have worked long and hard to hopefully come to the signing of a new lease which is acceptable to all parties. I can't comment on rent increases because I don't know the detail. 300% increase of a rent sounds a lot, but if it's a 300% increase on something that was very, very low and that brings it into something that's more realistic and sustainable, then I think it would be appropriate. But let's leave it to the Minister and the lessee to hopefully come to a deal so we can get on and utilise that asset properly. Thank you.
Supplemental question, David?
No, thank you, sir.
Colleague Arbison Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. I'm aware that often members of the public find it difficult to get direct access to speak to ministers, and we are there to deal with that and to speak on behalf of the public. I have been trying to hear back from a senior planning officer since the 3rd of June, and I have been trying to arrange a meeting with the senior officer within the health department since the middle of April. What is the protocol on the response to members from members of the civil service at whatever level, but particularly at senior level?
I believe the protocol is for members of the public service to be as to respond as quickly as is practicable at all times, and I know that is encouraged by all ministers. I'm sorry to hear that the Connétables had a problem with communications, and I know that the Minister and the Assistant Minister are discerning and would not have been pleased to hear that. So I'm sure if she talks to them, they will look to find a solution to that and to ensure it doesn't happen again. So I'm disappointed to hear that, and I apologise, sir, on behalf of that department that it's happened.
Supplemental question.
Yes, thank you, sir. I thank the Chief Minister for his apology. I have spoken to the ministers to ask that I am contacted. I'm not sure that all ministers are in the chamber at the moment. I haven't done a head count of them. What I would like to ask the Chief Minister, sir, is to put this as an agenda item on the Council of Ministers' agenda so that he can express his dissatisfaction to all ministers and ask that all civil servants, particularly at senior level, are reminded of this protocol and that they should respond to States members in the earliest instance. We should not have to wait for months to hear from them. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I'm happy to place it as an item on the Council of Ministers agenda, because it's not just communications with by civil servants. It's also we want to make sure as ministers and States members we are on top of it as well. I would caveat that to say that we do have some very good examples of communication which we can use to demonstrate how it should be done. We come down on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Wilson.
Thank you. Does the Chief Minister agree that the Health Minister just has too much on his plate?
No, I don't agree with that, sir. Thank you.
Supplemental question for that.
Thank you to the Chief Minister for that. Given that we have heard by his own admission this morning that the Health Minister hasn't or doesn't have time to read critical reports into the health service, can he assure us that he's the time to read reports into the health service and other areas of his responsibility to avoid any perception of solipsism?
I think it's impossible for ministers and States members to read everything. However, it is essential that we read what is high priority, what is essential and what is urgent. And I believe Deputy Binet and his assistant ministers and his team do that. Deputy Binet is incredibly honest, and we see that honesty coming out sometimes in answers to questions. It's an honesty that some of us might shy away from, but Deputy Binet has always been like that. That's his modus operandi. Some members might see it as a weakness. I actually see it as a strength, and I think it's important that when dealing with an issue such as the health service, no matter how hard it is, no matter how difficult it is to deal with some of the issues that are being unearthed in the health service, I believe honesty is at the forefront, and I hope that answers the question, so I have confidence in the Ministerial Health team.
Supplemental question? Was that a supplement? I can't remember now. It was. I'm sorry for that. Yes, Deputy Renouf.
So the Chief Minister today repeated his commitment to openness and transparency. However, the radiology report is apparently not going to be released until after the States has finished sitting. The mammography information was made public because of inquiries by the JEP. The government has declined to answer an FOI relating to the report because it's going to be released in 12 weeks. And information about the rheumatology mortality review has been drip-fed in answer to questions. Why is the government not taking a much more proactive approach to public communication in line with commitments to openness and transparency?
I think it's difficult in relation to medical reports where patients, members of the public, are impacted upon. Deputy Binet alluded to it in relation to the other issue that's arisen. I understand, to their credit, sir, the media did not publish until they were aware, so that all islanders that had been affected had been informed. I don't know the exact detail as to why there is a timeline to leading up to the publication of that report, but I'm sure Deputy Binet is comfortable with that, sir. I would urge, however, ministers to be as transparent as possible and to get publications out into the public domain as soon as practicable and as soon as appropriate, sir, given or depending upon the sensitive nature of the content.
Supplemental question, Deputy Renouf?
Yes, sir. I think what I'm trying to get at is, will the Chief Minister not seize hold of this agenda in line with those commitments, instead of this feeling of grudgingness whenever people are asking questions that relate to it. It feels like this commitment to openness and transparency is a bit like an ice cube. It's just melting in the heat of pressure of events.
Deputy has a wonderful way with words, sir. I must remember some of his phrases, sir, and I'm sorry he feels like that. We are, I believe, being as open and transparent as we can. That is the way we want to operate. And the Health Minister is keeping me fully abreast of the situation as it develops, and I will continue to work with him. But of course, I will have the conversation about that, sir, just once more to make sure that there's no problem. He's indicating to me across the floor, so that there is no problem with that. So I will discuss, sir, and if it can be released sooner, then it will be.
Division.
Thank you, sir. During the Chamber of Commerce lunch, the Chief Minister answered a question of who would be entitled to a living wage in Jersey. I may have misunderstood this, so could the Chief Minister confirm and explain why he answered that the living wage would not be linked to those working in Jersey on a 6 to 9 month contract?
I don't actually recall saying that, sir. Mind you, having said that, I can't remember what I had for breakfast, so I might just be mistaken.
Sorry, so can I confirm that the living wage would be for everybody who's working in Jersey on whatever contract or work permit that they are?
Yes, sir, that's my understanding of it.
Very well. Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Is there currently any kind of recruitment freeze in place across government? And if so, what are the details of that freeze? And are any services excluded from it, for example, health and education?
As I understand it, sir, the only restrictions we have in place is on vacancies older than 6 months. If 6 months has gone by and a vacancy hasn't been filled, then it has to be reapplied for.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Thank you, sir. And again, on areas being protected, how many redundancies is the government targeting? Is it correct to say that staff have been warned to expect around 150, and are health and education being protected from that number?
So, as I said before, it's inappropriate to comment on exact details of that nature while it's still policy under development and before staff are notified if there are to be changes in the structure of the public sector. But I have said previously, we will be examining middle and senior management roles to ensure we're not top-heavy, to ensure that the public sector is appropriately balanced. But we will be protecting and hopefully enhancing frontline services. That includes health, that includes education, to make sure we're properly resourced there on the areas where arguably it matters most to islanders, sir.
Deputy.
Thank you, sir. The Housing Minister stated in the last Assembly that he had, as a matter of conscience, not voted to support any application for high net worth individuals to come to Jersey. Does the Chief Minister believe that these comments may dissuade people from applying for 2-1E status? Thank you.
No, I don't, sir, in short. There's no evidence that has happened, and applications continue to remain steady.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Has the Chief Minister considered moving the responsibility for authorising high net worth individuals away from the Housing and Work Advisory Group to himself or the Treasury Minister? Thank you.
I have a feeling, sir, that's managed by a previous state's decision. But I will check, sir. But I'm comfortable with the situation as it stands. I think the process is good and seems to be working well. Thank you.
Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. Given recent news about the significant challenges faced by one of our local cannabis producers, could the Chief Minister give his views, please, on the status of the cannabis industry in Jersey?
I think that's more of a question for the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development, but it is something that I was involved in when I was doing that job. And the industry is still young, and on a global scale, it's a very, when I say dynamic situation, sir, there's a lot of of developments in different countries. I hope the industry can continue to build foundations, and I very much hope there's a successful new industry sector with some longevity here, sir, because I think if it does work, notwithstanding the challenges it faced, then I do believe it can bring significant economic benefits to the island.
Supplemental question?
Given his hopes for the future, what support, if any, is being given to the industry by government?
Well, I don't believe any financial support has been given. In fact, in the early stages of setting up or preparing for an industry, it was made clear that there would be no support based on the potential for it being a very lucrative business, and tax structures were put in place that would benefit the island financially. So I'm not aware of any financial support being lined up for the industry in line as other agriculturalists would receive, sir. But I do know there is an agricultural loan scheme, and I presume that members of that industry would be applied to that, so that could be one avenue open.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister mentioned his support and work of the Council of Ministers for higher education opportunities and to invest in opportunities for students to return back to the island, which is really welcome. Would the Chief Minister share his views on vocational training and apprenticeships?
I would need to have a conversation with the Education Minister so I can properly articulate my views on that. To be honest, it's something I haven't given a great deal of thought to of late due to other commitments, but I know it's something the Education Minister is attuned to, and I'm sure at a forthcoming debate we can develop our position on that.
So I ask Chief Minister's position on support for vocational education and apprenticeship, not the Minister for Education.
I thought the Chief Minister answered that he would wish to confer with that Minister before he would answer that question, if he's able to answer it in any more detail.
No, sir, that is correct. Out of respect for the Education Minister's position on this, I would like to have discussions with him in order that we can present a shared view on it, sir.
Supplementary?
Yes, indeed.
Thank you. Would the Chief Minister consider investment in vocational education and training important for the island economy?
I do so insofar as it's one of our key, it's one of our key priorities, and especially as we've identified that the biggest challenge this island is facing is working age population, reduction fertility rate, reduction in births, and the fact that due to the high cost of living, cost of buying a home, young people are not only leaving to go to university but not coming back. And one of the ways we can help to address that is by making sure we supply the right further education and vocational training to retain young people and make it more attractive for them to come back to their island, sir. Thank you.
Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister advise what delays, if any, there are in the move of the public service to the new office accommodation? And if so, what has been the cause of these?
I'm not aware of any delays to date, sir, and I expect the move to the handover to be in September, with the move to be complete by the end of the year, with the new offices opening in early January.
Supplemental question? Deputy Porre.
Thank you, sir. Would the Chief Minister, in his capacity as Chair of the State's Employment Board, advise whether the value of the public services are applicable to all employees? Thank you.
Of course, sir, and I know I speak for my colleagues. We value the contribution of all employees right across the public sector and civil service, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Porre.
Thank you, sir. Would he advise whether there is a requirement for all public-facing staff to wear an identification badge that is visible to the public, and whether a member of the public can request to see such an identification or such as the name of the employee? Thank you.
I'm sorry, sir, I don't know, but I will find out and get back to the Deputy.
Deputy Dublé.
Thank you, sir. Given the serious nature of the reports in the Health Department recently, has the Chief Minister met with the Health Minister to discuss any of these findings and how services can be improved for all islanders?
Yes, we've had discussions on this, and I've asked to be kept informed of developments. It was hugely disappointing, and I join the department in adding my apologies, sir, to those impacted by the latest circumstances, sir. But I also like to provide some reassurance to members and islanders that it is taken with the utmost seriousness, sir. And we now have a fully functioning health board. We have an improved management structure, sir. We have a policy, not only a policy, sir, but we actively, sir, I as Chief Minister, other ministers, actively encourage members of staff and the public and patients to come forward with any concerns they have, sir, because that's one of the key ways we're going to uncover any other shortcomings. And I know the Health Minister and his team are committed to doing that, sir. And quite honestly, sir, the Department and the Minister have said, yes, we could find more problems, sir. Once again, I encourage people to come forward and share those with us.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Chief Minister for taking this seriously. Is he able to give us any details of what was on the action plan? And furthermore, is he able to give any details of any emergency board meetings that may have been held in the recently?
Not at this stage, sir, because I still have to be fully briefed on certain aspects of what's happened, sir. But I'm happy to take questions in the future, sir, or even meet with members and the Health Minister, sir, if there are any concerns they want to go into in more detail.
There is about half a minute left. Deputy Renouf, can you be that fast?
Simple question. Who is in charge of the public realm strategy?
Well, so it's a regeneration steering group. It takes responsibility for that in the first instance, and they're putting together, should we call it a committee or a subcommittee or panel, so to focus on a new approach to some areas of that.
And that brings the question time for the Chief Minister to an end, and the end of question time generally. There is nothing under J and K. Before we start public business proper, there are two matters to be addressed by the Assembly. The first, Chief Minister, in relation to P42 Draft Public Holidays and Bank Holidays Royal Visit Jersey Amendment Act. I understand you would wish to ask this item as taken as the first item of public business. Is that correct?
Well, it wasn't, sir, no, because I'm sorry if you've been misinformed. We did think about that last week, but and then I remembered that that we would give way to Deputy Hegar's request, sir. But the rationale behind that was we want to give as much notice as possible, sir, but I'm quite happy to leave it in the current order on the order paper.
Very well. That's not then to be proceeded with. Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, P40, Draft Mental Health Young Offenders Law. You're wishing to make the proposition, understanding Order 26.7, the lodging period be reduced to allow the matter to be debated at this sitting?
Yes, sir, I would. Sir, these regulations amend an article in the mental health law where there is a gap. The article enables the Royal Court to make a transfer order where a person is a prisoner or young person serving a sentence of youth detention, requires urgent mental health care or treatment and needs to be transferred to a hospital or mental health facility to receive that care. Currently, this is not possible if the young person is serving a sentence of youth detention and is held in secure accommodation. Secure accommodation is currently the most widely used setting in which young people serve their detention. So I'm seeking a reduced lodging period so that these regulations can be debated today, and if approved, they would come into force within 7 days. Otherwise, the regulations would need to wait until September to be debated. This is an agreed pragmatic solution in response to concerns that exist regarding the situation today. Hence why I'm seeking a reduced lodging period. This amendment is necessary to correct a known oversight in the law. It will enable some of our most vulnerable young people to access timely mental health care in a hospital or mental health facility. These are urgent interim regulations that are required in the short term before primary law amendments will be brought to the Assembly as part of Tranche 2 amendments to the mental health law as part of the ongoing review of the mental health law and the capacity and self-determination, sir. I've emailed members and I've also asked if they would consider allowing me, under Standing Order 31, to actually take this as the first part of the business, as I have a commitment in the latter part of the week, which has been in my diary for 5 years, sir, and I wanted to ensure that this matter was dealt with. Thank you, sir.
Very much. So the proposition is to enable this piece of draft legislation to be dealt with at the current sitting. Is that proposition seconded?
Sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? If no member wishes to speak, then I close the debate. Those in favour of adopting the proposition kindly show. Those against? I'm assuming that we can take the proposition within this sitting and as the first item of business. Very well. Well then, the first item of business is the draft Mental Health Young Offenders Law at Jersey Amendment, and excuse me, I ask the greffier to read the citation. The main responder is the Chair of the Children Education and Home Affairs Scrutiny Panel. Greffier.
Draft Mental Health Young Offenders Law Jersey Amendment Regulations 2000. The states make these regulations under Article 32(1) of the Criminal Justice Young Offenders Jersey Law 2014.
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Assembly for allowing me to take this at this time. Sir, Article 69 of the Mental Health Jersey Law 2016 currently permits the movement of a prisoner to an approved establishment, which is a facility approved by the Minister for Health and Social Services to provide mental health care and treatment. In late 2023, during the process to acquire transfer order for a young person, a gap in the provision was exposed for the first time. As drafted, Article 69 does not apply to young people serving a sentence of youth detention who are held in secure accommodation. The article of a sentence of youth detention in a young offenders institution. These regulations have been developed at speed, sir, in order to fill that gap. These regulations are necessary and are a pragmatic solution to amend the law quickly, so that for the first time a young person held in secure accommodation can be transferred by order of the Royal Court, at speed where it is necessary for them to receive specialist care and treatment. It is agreed by all stakeholders that these regulations significantly improve the current legislative position and fulfil the original policy intention behind this part of the mental health law. It has been decided to make these changes under a consequential regulation-making power in the Criminal Justice Young Offenders Jersey Law 2016 to implement these changes quickly. To make this change by primary law would take far, far longer, especially now in the UK general election period, that will impact on timescale for Privy Council approval. The Children's Commissioner was consulted as part of the process of bringing these regulations before the Assembly. During that constructive consultation, the Commissioner was concerned that these should represent an interim position only. The government has undertaken to both the Commissioner and the Children Education and Home Affairs Scrutiny Panel that these will indeed be interim, short-term measures only. It is regrettable that this was not stated for clarity in the report accompanying the draft regulations. For the avoidance of doubt, I would like to place on record to the States Assembly that the Minister for Health and Social Services and I share the concerns raised by the Commissioner. Therefore, it was agreed during the consultation with the Commissioner that these regulations would proceed on the basis that further work to address children's rights concerns would be included as part of the Tranche 2 legislative amendment being developed to amend the mental health law. Those primary law amendments will have the virus to amend Article 69 to address the concerns raised by the Commissioner, whereas these regulations do not. It is also agreed that the Code of Practice that sits under the mental health law should be amended alongside the primary law amendments as a result of these regulations. The Children, Education and Home Affairs Scrutiny Panel were briefed prior to the regulations being lodged and were made aware of the Commissioner's concerns and of our agreement that the regulations would provide an interim position, albeit one that is much better than the current position. The panel was also made aware that further amendments to Article 69 of the Mental Health Law would follow as part of the ongoing amendments to the Mental Health Law. This was followed up with the sharing of the correspondence with the panel that detailed the Commissioner's concerns in full and the agreed way forward. I would like to place on record, sir, that the panel worked at speed to enable this legislation to be scrutinised. These changes are necessary to ensure some of our most vulnerable children can receive mental health care and treatment in a hospital if it is necessary. They also enable them to be transferred to an approved establishment in the UK if that is what is required to provide the most appropriate type of care. This transfer is not possible currently. Thank you, sir.
Are the principles seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the principles? No member wishes to speak. I close the debate, and all members in favour of adopting the principles kindly show. Those against? The principles are adopted. Does the Chair of the Children, Education and Home Affairs Scrutiny Panel wish to scrutinise this matter?
No, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much indeed. How do you wish to deal with the matters in second reading, Minister?
Sir, I would like to take them on block if I can, please, sir.
You propose them en bloc?
Yes, please, sir.
Are they seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the articles or any of them? Those in favour of adopting in second reading kindly show. Those against? The articles are adopted in second reading. Do you propose in third reading, Minister?
Yes, please, sir, and I'd like for the appeal, please.
Very well. Is it seconded for third reading?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak in third reading? No member wishes to speak in third reading. Then I close the debate. The appeal is called for. I invite members to return to their seats. The vote is on the adoption of the draft regulations in third reading. And I ask the greffier to open the voting. If members have had the opportunity of casting their vote, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The regulations have been adopted in third reading of 41 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstentions. Well, the next item of public business is the Draft Public Holidays and Bank Holidays Royal Visit Jersey Amendment Act, P42, and the main respondent will be the Chair of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel, and I ask the greffier to read that proposition.
Draft Public Holidays and Bank Holidays Royal Visit Jersey Amendment Act 2000. The states make this act under Article 2 of the Public Holidays and Bank Holidays Jersey Law 1951.
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. So, like so many islanders and members of the Assembly, I was delighted to learn that Their Majesties King Charles III and Queen Camilla plan to visit the island next month. Jersey is a Crown dependency. Our centuries-old relationship is not with the UK Parliament, sir, but with the Crown, and we have a long tradition of warmly welcoming monarchs to our island. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert visited in 1846, King George V in 1921, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, in 1945, following the occupation. and the late Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, sir, visited 6 times across her long reign. Each of those visits coincided with significant public celebration. The last time that a King Charles was in Jersey, sir, was in 1649 when the island sheltered King Charles II before his return to England to reclaim the throne. I might point out, sir, that we recognised him as king when England and a certain other island nearby were supporting Parliament. So he never forgot his time in Jersey, and for our loyalty and hospitality, he granted that mace to your predecessor. Not your immediate predecessor, sir, I may add, but I think the one in 1663 when it was presented, sir, as a signal of our special relationship. King Charles III also spent time in the island as a young student. In 1968, he was part of the team that undertook the archaeological dig at La Cotte in St Brellards. I believe it is absolutely right that we give islanders the opportunity to celebrate this royal visit with the same vigour and the same freedom as we have done in the past. And whilst, sir, I do completely understand there is an economic impact, sir, and a cost which has been set out in the proposition, in the report attached to the proposition, sir. And I do note, sir, that it is difficult to give much more notice in these circumstances because royal visits of this nature, sir, are normally announced at relatively short notice, sir, for obvious reasons. But I do believe, sir, that notwithstanding that, the benefits to our island will shine forth on that particular day. Having a holiday on Monday the 15th will allow islanders who could not otherwise be able to celebrate to take part in the festivities with their family, sir, and this includes many retail and office workers. School children, so will be starting, some school children will be starting their summer holidays at that period, and for a great many children it will be their first chance to see and enjoy the royal visit of their Majesties. I'm also, sir, ever the optimist, hopeful that even rarer than monarchs visiting the island is England winning a major sporting football competition, sir, but it just so happens that the final of the European Championship will be on the Sunday night, so you never know, sir. And with that in mind, I hope members will support the proposition, sir, and allow our community to celebrate the visit of their Majesties next month. Thank you.
Is the proposition seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Deputy Wall.
Thank you, sir. I've just been advised I may have to declare an interest here because I'm obviously a business owner of a part hospitality business, so obviously members bear that in mind. So I appreciate that what I'm about to say will cut little ice when it comes to the outcome of this debate. However, I feel it's really important that the voice of business, and in particular small local businesses, is heard within this assembly. In fact, it's one of the reasons I stood for election. Too many members in this assembly cannot even begin to relate to the economic challenges small business face in today's climate. So many things we do in this assembly for the most vulnerable in our community is paid for by business through their economic activity. Government simply allocates the revenue it receives. Thus, when we ask businesses to close down for a day over and above those already allocated as bank holidays, with virtually no ability to plan, we immediately place a significant additional unbudgeted cost burden on our local businesses. I've been approached by many local businesses who feel that this assembly is simply not listening to them. There's lots of talk about supporting our local economy, but when push comes to shove, we don't walk the talk. Whilst the cost to my business will be in the thousands, the cost to the economy in lost productivity and economic activity could be as much as £15 million. Some businesses will benefit, but the net effect on our economy is negative. So who is expected to pick up the tab? Why, small businesses. Small local businesses who've already seen 5 bank holidays in the last couple of months. Small local businesses who had to shut down because of Storm Ciarán. Small local businesses who are still recovering from the shadow of COVID. There will be no social security holiday. The landlord won't stop charging rent for the day. ITIS will still be due. Surely, rather than declare a public holiday, we should be saying to businesses that they give priority to those members of staff who would like to take a day's holiday from their annual allocation. That then enables those who wish to attend the visit of His Majesty and Queen Camilla to attend whilst the detrimental impact on small local businesses is minimised. Whilst I'm a huge supporter of the royal family, I'm also a supporter of small local businesses. And I'm sure as a business owner himself, His Majesty would understand the stance I am taking. I will be voting against the proposition for the reasons I've expressed in my speech.
Very much. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to speak? Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. I will also declare that I am a business owner that has an employee on payroll. And I want to start by saying I completely agree with the Chief Minister's speech about excitement and recognition of the relationships this island has. And I think members who saw the seating outside the States Assembly and Royal Court only yesterday as they practised will already be excited to see people gather together on such a day, and we heard how many seats will be there and how many people will be there sharing in that moment. And so there is never a good time to discuss the scheduling of extraordinary public holidays, because they are often very either emotive or kind of close-touched subjects. But I think sometimes we do have to talk about them, or at least we have to start the conversation somewhere. So I'm going to start it slightly today. Because each time we do have this debate, and we've had this as an Assembly since 2022 multiple times, members of the public do raise questions. They raise questions about the impact on childcare, health services. They raise impact about the value of it, the relevance of it. So I'm undecided how I will vote so far, sir, but I would like it if the Chief Minister, in his summing up, could provide as many answers to some questions that I will go through now to help us make an informed debate. If we don't start now collecting more data about the purposes and the value of a public holiday we schedule, we risk actually devaluing the ones we do schedule. And so for that reason, the questions that come to my mind are, what are the impacts on 0 hours workers? Do we expect they will be compensated for these days? Or has consultation with the business community taken place to work out whether they will simply not be drafted for days that appear on a public holiday, such as the one proposed? What proportion of workers will be expected to work nonetheless and offered the day in lieu or otherwise? In essence, they will not get to take part regardless on that, because they may be in hospitality, retail, agriculture.
I wonder, sir, if the Deputy could just speak a little bit slower so I could
of course.
Write down his question.
There we go. Yes, I will go slower. I thought we were all going for a quick debate. No, that one, sir, was about the proportion of people who can take part in the day or even take the scheduled day off. What proportion of the working population will actually be given that day off or will claim it in day in lieu or extra payments? And I mentioned the retail, hospitality and agricultural sectors as those most likely to have to work it nonetheless. What proportion of those who do not attend school or work that day, aka those who benefit from the day, will meet or engage in the activities associated with the holiday? In this case, the exciting experience of seeing the royals in the square or down at Liberation Square or the Weybridge. What should be considered appropriate notice of time for a public holiday? What data collection and evidence gathering will go on during the day to inform the next debate we have, so we don't have to rehearse the same arguments each time? So with that, I do remain undecided. I would like members to speak on this topic. I'm looking forward to the day. I'm hoping we'll have some wonderful weather and it will be a jubilant day, but so far the report does not contain enough to tell members they are making evidence and informed decisions, and I hope the Chief Minister can address that in his summing up.
Deputy Tadia.
Thank you, sir. I admire Deputy War for standing up and making the speech that he did, even if he's going to be an outlier in the way he votes, perhaps, in this particular debate, because I'm reminded of, the first thing to say, sir, is I do have an interest to declare, because I love a good bank holiday. And I don't care how much they cost. I say that slightly tongue-in-cheek, because there are wider benefits to having a bank holiday. And I'll get on to why I think that this, on balance, is not just a good idea, but a very good idea for Jersey. and why we should all support it. But he is right to point out the fact that depending on what kind of bank holiday it is, you do get a mixed response. So if you were to propose something that on the surface looked like it might have a whiff of a socialist bank holiday, because it commemorated a small revolution, but a significant one that took place in Jersey's history, you would get comments issued saying the following: it is difficult to reach a definitive figure for overall impact potentially incurred across the community of a bank holiday. While an extra holiday might shift the timing of some sale and expenditure, in some sectors a missed day cannot be made up for again. A cafe that relies on lunchtime trade from employees in the office complex next door will lose a day's trade that cannot be recouped. The Jersey Chamber of Commerce is particularly concerned about the effects on small businesses and those experiencing difficulties. It is estimated that each extra day could cost the economy up to £10 million in lost wages and productivity. Based on the average GVA per working day minus property rental, it is also estimated that the government consists economists that in the worst case scenario, a bank holiday could cost £18 million, which would equate to a day's economic activity being lost. But the difference there is that it's to do with the corn riots. We've got a very different type of bank holiday coming up. It's a royal bank holiday. And of course, we know that economics behaves differently when it's a royal visit rather than when it's just an ordinary bank holiday, albeit one with lots of notice periods. When I proposed it, sir, which did succeed, incidentally. It was a one-off bank holiday, as is being proposed here. So I'm often reminded that sometimes we tell ourselves simplified stories, and it'll be relevant, I think, at the end of my speech as to why I'm alluding to this, because sometimes historical stories are much easier to tell when they're simplified, but you also lose a lot of colour in that and a lot of nuance. And I'm reminded when I speak to tourists, as I do sometimes, that the date that we're given, for example, as being very significant is 1204, when King John Santerre, or Lackland, lost the territories in France, and therefore Jersey had to make a choice, and it chose to be loyal to the English crown, and therefore Jersey became a possession of the English crown, although not a possession of England. And it's the story that we like to reinforce by retelling that, and I'm reminded every time I go to Charing Cross in St Helier, which I walk past often, I'm sure other members do, and we see that beautiful toad, our Jersey toad, the crapaud, which stands on the plinth, which also reminds us of the Code Leggett, sir, where the laws were codified by one of your predecessors, sir, Leggett, in 1693, I think it was, who decided that it's really important that we have these laws, that if you can get some quite gruesome consequences for your actions, you should at least know what they are before you potentially commit those offences. And it is a beautiful memorial which will celebrate its 20th anniversary this year in 2024. But we actually look into history and we realise that it's much more nuanced, because what local noble families did, and it was by no means all of the population who had to make this choice of whether they remained loyal to one side or the other, is that they would often look at where they had the most territories. So if you had a small plot of land in Jersey, but you actually had a big lucrative estate somewhere in Normandy, you might say, actually, my loyalty is with the Duke of Normandy still. And what I'm going to do is give that piece of land to one of my sons and give the other piece of land to my local son. So you did have divided loyalties. And something interesting happened is that the king sent over the monk Eustace to Jersey to kidnap certain noble families and take them over. Where did he take them? To Sark, of all places, to make sure that they ultimately remained loyal to the King of England, sir, not to the Duke of Normandy, which, of course, Jersey was no longer part of Normandy after that point. So it is a much more colourful story where some of the locals had to be coerced into finally perhaps paying loyalty to the monarchy in England and gradually forget their loyalty to the dukes. But they of course did have the best of both worlds. Jersey and Norman culture was allowed to prevail for many centuries, and we still know that we've got the best of both worlds in many ways when it comes to our Norman and to our British connections, sir. I say that, and again, it will become relevant why I mentioned Sark, because Sarks and Guernsey have all had different histories in this. What I would say, sir, is that I'm not necessarily the most immediately well-known for my pro-monarchy stance, sir. I tend to keep those matters private. But what I would say is that we know that the monarchy throughout the centuries and certainly today works very hard, and they are cherished by so many in our local community as well. And I see this in many ways as a practical solution to this event that's coming up on the 15th of July. It's not just going to be important for us now, it's going to be the stuff of history being made. We know that when the first visits of a ruling monarch came with Queen Victoria in the mid-1800s, which was linked to the opening of our harbours, or new parts of our harbours, that was welcomed by so many islanders. It's in the history books. Again, when we had the visits of George V and Queen Mary in the early part of the 1900s, that's when a lot of our parish symbols were created for the first time. They didn't necessarily exist before. And so there's a great tradition that happens when we remember that. And I think new traditions will also be formed with this visit. And there's a risk that if we didn't have a bank holiday, it just becomes another elitist jamboree, if I can call it that, where we can go to it, that's fine, the Royal Court can go to it. If you're lucky enough to work for yourself and take a day off, if you're well positioned and you've got an invite, you can come along to it. But what do you do if you're an ordinary worker, in inverted commas? There's no obligation to attend this, of course, but it does mean that school children, teachers, anybody who lives and works in Jersey ordinarily can come and be part of this very historic event and see history being made. And also, I think what's a good bit of soft patriotism for Jersey to show what it does very best, which is welcome people and welcome them very well. I would suggest that it would also be great exposure for Jersey, because there will be immediate coverage of this in the national media, and people might think, oh, actually, we went to Jersey once in the 1970s when we got married. Why don't we go back there? They've just had a royal visit. And I suspect some people will also have heard of this and be planning their trips to Jersey specifically to coincide with the royal visit. And, they may not be able to buy their coffee or their coffee in a particular shop anywhere in Jersey, or have their lunch in a shop which is shut, or go to a specific shop which is shut. But the day before and the day after they can, because they're probably not going to be staying for just one day. And that's before we get into the longer-term impact on Jersey might be. I'd also say that it's a bank holiday for everybody. So if you don't want to go and welcome the King and Queen visiting Jersey, if you check the Monchiel Express website, there does happen to be a trip to Sark on that day. I think it leaves 9 o'clock and comes back at 5 p.m. So I'm not suggesting that anyone does that, of course, because there's a risk that you might actually be kidnapped and remain there if you're not an outright monarch, loyalist to the monarch, sir. So I would say that if you do risk going to Sark on Monday the 15th of July, just make sure that you can come back.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Doublé.
Thank you. So I put my light on to speak following Deputy Ward's speech, because I was a little bit alarmed that the debate might go against the public holiday, but I sense that the mood is perhaps the other way following Deputy Tadier's speech. And I wanted just to briefly echo actually some of the things that Deputy Tadier said about the morale of the island. And I think we cannot forget that times have been really very hard recently for islanders, and having a bank holiday will go a long way towards possibly only briefly boosting some of that community spirit. And celebrating is something, in terms of our humanity, it's something that's really, really important to do together as a community. So I hope that islanders will take that opportunity to come together if we do approve this bank holiday. And I did look quickly at some of the research on the impacts on the economy, and we mustn't assume that the impacts are negative, because there is research that states that productivity actually increases immediately following a bank holiday. And so this brought to mind the trials that have been happening in many jurisdictions around the 4-day work week, because of course when we have a Monday bank holiday, that is essentially a 4-day work week. And I think that companies could take this opportunity to reflect on whether that is something that they could perhaps trial further beyond a bank holiday with their companies, because it's something I very much think would improve productivity and morale across the island.
Deputy, any other member wish to speak on the proposition? Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to thank everyone so far who's commented. It's been really interesting, and I don't think, listening to Deputy Doublé, I don't think in my mind it was ever in doubt which way the vote on this is going to go, despite Deputy Ward's intervention. But I rise really to acknowledge Deputy Ward's speech. I think it was an excellent speech, and he touched on many of the matters that came to my mind when this was being proposed around the Council of Ministers table. And whilst I agree also with Deputy Tadje in that this is an important historical event, I do think we should have a public holiday for this. I do think it is important. What I do also believe, though, is that it is not the case when public holidays are being proposed for the Assembly that there is any element of economic analysis provided. I believe the reason such a long economically focused comment had been provided for Deputy Tadje's proposition for the corn rights public holiday was probably because there's just a lot of time in which to do it. Whereas in this case we've got a matter of days between the lodging and the proposition being debated. We don't have time for comments and such things. Had there been time, sir, it was my intention to speak to the GREF to see if there was some way of, in future public holiday acts, of requiring the inclusion of an economic analysis, because I think it is important. The sums that we have heard, we don't know if they're right or wrong. There are approximations. I've heard 18 million lost to the economy, 15 million lost to the economy. These are significant sums, sir. And on top of that, public holidays, although I appreciate in the case of this one, because it's the last day of the school term, this is probably being mitigated naturally. But they do cause childcare issues as well. When members of the public, parents who are expecting their children to be at school, suddenly the children are not at school, but maybe they still have to work. It does cause also those childcare problems. That said, there's no question in my mind. I think this may be one of the only visits to the island, possibly the only visit to the island that the King chooses to make. And I think, therefore, giving as many people as possible the opportunity to celebrate that and to enjoy that in whichever way, whether that enjoyment means a picnic on the beach or whether it means coming to the Royal Square, I think is entirely up to islanders to decide how they wish to commemorate it. But I think Deputy Doublé can rest assured that I think the Assembly is going to go in one direction, regardless of Deputy Ward's choice of voting. But the points that Deputy Ward made were really important points, and ones that I do encourage the Assembly to think of when we have future public holiday propositions. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Connie Tarbison-Blood.
Thank you, sir. And I first of all declare an interest as a small business owner. Deputy Ward's comments are pertinent. There's no question about that. There will be significant cost to businesses throughout the island, as has been made by a point made by others. As a result, sir, of a meeting held of the Comité Connétable last Monday, it was agreed amongst us that we would support the concept of the bank holiday, but with the full knowledge that the agricultural industry will be significantly affected. They are in a position where they can't stop what they're doing. Things continue to grow, shipping continues to take place, and there will be accommodation being needed to be made for those particular areas. I would also just expand on the costs, shall we say, which are probably fairly easily identifiable in terms of, to a certain extent, as the Minister just said, because we know how much the cost of staffing is going to be for a particular day. Always difficult to quantify what a loss of business might be. Versus, on the other hand, so the cost benefits, and that's something which is really difficult to establish. It's pretty clear that there will be cost benefits. Will those outweigh the costs? Difficult to say, and I don't think anybody, despite any sort of exercise that might be taken, as the Minister said, before any future debate, is really going to be terribly accurate. We could identify from various businesses what they think. It might be a bit subjective, but we might get some information coming from that. I think the risk some members, particularly Deputy Ward, may be taking on, should we say, a Cromwellian approach, and there will always be a difference in opinion. But as a Royalist island, sir, I feel I've got to back the proposition. Thank you, sir.
Right, does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? Deputy Scott.
Sir, I only wish to add to what's already been said that, contrary to what might be suggested amongst the public, that the Council Ministers have considered very hard not just the economic costs and the cost to business, but we also should acknowledge that there can be a human cost to this, that there will be cancelled operations. We have been mindful of this. We also have been mindful of many other considerations, which include the optics of actually not having this bank holiday. So I will be supporting this proposition, but it has been, in some ways, a difficult one in terms of considering some of the people who are going to have to bear the cost of this as well as government. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member... Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to say a couple of things. We mentioned about schools being off. I know schools do have the day off and children do have the day off. I know a number of schools where actually teachers are arranging trips for children during their time off so that they can ensure that a number of their students have access to the day to go and line the route and so on. They don't have to do that, but it's another example of our teaching profession going above and beyond the calls, and I think that needs to be pointed out, just like so many who won't be able to. So I did sort of assume a little too much with regards to this visit because I've recently been invited to the Monarch's Garden. I thought you might come and visit mine. I was a little worried, sir, because I'd have to cut the grass, but I don't think that's happening now. So I would support this, and I would support it for all the reasons that are given. I think we do need to remember that some people will be working on that day, healthcare workers. But before we make blanket assumptions about members of staff, I think so many of our workforce go above and beyond in ways that we don't see in our public services, and I think we need to recognise that. So it's a shame that all the coffee shops won't be open, although so with my party membership, I'm not entirely sure I get service in some of them. But there we go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to speak? I close the debate and call upon the Chief Minister to respond.
Thank you, sir. It was becoming a long morning, but we're going to finish right on time. And can I thank everybody for speaking in that and echo the views, no matter how unpopular one might conceive one's views to be. It's important that we can speak in this Assembly without fear of retribution, even when we're discussing royal matters. So Deputy Curtis asked me to answer a couple of questions. I'll try and, in the interest of expediting this, I'll try and group the question about the impact on people with 0 hours contracts and the proportion of people impacted and pay protection, for example. It is worth mentioning that that if you don't, members of the public don't work on a bank holiday, they are pay protected, and people that do work or have to work or are asked to work receive enhanced pay rates. So that the employment laws there are to provide a cover. So hopefully we won't see anybody losing out financially. Notwithstanding that, I recognise that it's going to be different for some of the businesses. But of course, when discussing with the economic advisor, it's very difficult to put a cost on it. It depends on the time of year, the occasion, the weather. You don't know what the day is going to be like, what it's for. Obviously, if you're in the height of the summer, there's potentially more impact than something in the middle of winter. But the biggest change is on productivity, has been mentioned by a couple of members. But usually, in circumstances, the island will still generate the same output over the period of a year, but it will just be moved around. And I know a number of people, including many friends and family, sir, who will say, well, we're looking forward to the day off work, but we're going to have to catch up when we get back. So, the overall impact on the island over a period of time is limited. I particularly enjoyed the contribution from a number of this. We are a royalist island, and I was just hoping that the comment Deputy Taddier read out wasn't one of mine from a previous life, but I don't think it was. Might have been. It might have been. So can I just thank everybody for speaking and say well done to those who were brave enough to speak out and exercise their views. And can I just take a moment, sir, to just welcome and recognise the perseverance of Deputy Miller's mother, who's been in the Assembly in the Spectators Gallery all morning, sir, without flinching. On a final note, sir, there is one perhaps absolutely unavoidable reason why we need to have a bank holiday, sir, and that's because Guernsey has already declared theirs. Thank you very much.
Generally, that's not
Leopold, please.
Yes. Generally, that's not the best debating point, but the appellate call for invite members to return to their seats. The vote is on whether or not we have a bank holiday on the day of the royal visit, and I ask members to Greffier to open the voting, members to vote. Members have had the opportunity of casting their vote. Then I ask the Greffier to close the voting. The proposition has been adopted. 36 votes pour, 3 votes contre, no abstention.
May we have the 3, please, sir?
Those voting contre, Deputies Moore, Ball and Andrews.
So can I suggest we take them to the castle?
May I propose the adjournment, sir?
Yes. The adjournment is proposed. The Assembly stands adjourned until 2:15.